Hello and welcome to the ORCA pod. Here I am looking very fancy. I'm looking very professional because I've just come from a very important business dinner. But it's respectful to this season, which has been so professionally put together. The editing, the storytelling, the cast was elite. What a fantastic time we've had with Canberra Survivor Season 3 versus the world over the last number of weeks. It's been an absolute epic journey, and maybe a bit sadly, but thankfully I have my co-hosts here to talk about what was a fantastic finale. So without further ado, let me bring in... they're panicking because I told them there might be a dress-up, but this isn't the dress-up. I just came from an important business dinner. My co-hosts, as always, let me bring them in. First, we have Dani. Welcome.
Hi, I was in serious panic. I was like, I don't have my sequins on. I'm not ready.
I'm going to go get changed in a minute. I dress up better than a pinstripe navy business suit for a dress-up situation.
Okay.
But I will go get changed. I'll let you and Jules take the reins in a moment while I get changed. As I said, I just rushed to get here. And speaking of Jules, welcome, Jules.
Do you have to do this when you say business?
That's what they teach you in law school.
Sorry, okay, I didn't go to law school, so I don't know that one. Sorry. I don't have many business meetings driving trains.
I would expect not. But you provide an incredibly valuable public service, and we appreciate what you bring to society. What a finale. I think we've been unequivocal on this show that this season, its pre-merge, was incredible. Arguably the best. I don't think it needs to be argued. It was the best. The best pre-merge of any LRG. It went very predictable for most of the merge, other than the Todd vote. Made the episodes a little bit boring, incredibly well told, incredibly well edited, but somewhat predictable and boring. But this finale, I think, delivered a fantastic exclamation point to what is overly a great season.
Absolutely. I don't think it was predictable at all. They also had a lot of game left to play with not a lot of room to maneuver. It was exciting.
Yeah, when you get whispering at the final 5 tribal, like there's only 4 people that can receive votes and people are still not sure what they're doing. Like, I think it's a testament to a really strong gameplay, a really strong cast. And I think I've spoken on this podcast many times before about having a strong cast equals a strong season, and I think we got that here.
100%.
You're jumping in, and normally I like to go with that flow and just jump into that vote, but I would like to go change out of this outfit. It is warm. So if you could please continue with your discussion without getting anything too deep that I'm going to miss, I'd be very much appreciated.
All right. Well, we start at the beginning, shall we?
Really want us to get into it. I mean, let's get the draft shit out of the way. Well done, Dani. You win. Blah, blah, blah. You had 2 people in the final tribal council. You basically had it won last week. Like, I did the maths to work out. I technically could still win, but it was a very unique scenario and it wasn't going to happen.
2 out of 3 at final tribal. Even I didn't expect that. I thought I'd have 1, and it was not. I expected Oscar to be there for sure. I hoped Bethany would be there. I think I said this last week. I don't think people were clocking her game enough because no one was talking about her in the last 3-4 episodes. No one was saying a word about her, and I'm like, this girl is going to get to the end without anybody seeing her. But I thought maybe at 4. But I mean, we'll get there. We'll get to what happened, and we'll do all that. But thank you. Very, very happy. My first draft, my first win.
Have to buy you dinner, or
pardon?
Did we decide? Is that how it works? CK has to buy you dinner. Is that how this works? I don't remember what the bet was.
I don't remember what it was either.
I don't know, but he came last, so I didn't come last. I'll take second place.
Take second place, yeah. Well, it's 1 to 3, so we're all podium finishes. That's the only thing.
I lost a couple early. I wasn't going to bounce back from that. I had the first boot, and I had a very unfortunate swap screw, and then the merge boot.
Yeah, I think I had most of mine in merge, so I was sitting pretty. I think I only lost 1 or 2 pre-merge.
That's very impressive. Well done.
Thank you. And I was terrified in the beginning because I picked Lauren first and was so excited about her because she's just a fabulous queen as we've seen through the season. But being a target so early, I was like, I don't know how this is going to go. And then, just fabulous. There he is.
being the
Are we
MVP.
discussing the draft? I don't think we did a draft.
Yes,
Drafts
discussing
are
draft.
irrelevant. Drafts are pointless and reductive, and we didn't do one. 'Cause
Pointless and reductive because you didn't win.
I don't know how we did in the end, but I had Ed, and Ed got 2 votes, so I kind of done too badly. Okay,
I had 2 of 3 at Final Travel. I win.
Well, we can do the scores later. I haven't run the numbers, Danny. Who knows?
I was the
Who
first one
knows?
out because I didn't have anyone at Final Travel.
Well, let's get into that first vote. The whispers, as you say. We get into this incredible start. Now, I don't know if Dan was deliberately doing Pauline a little bit dirty, but man, did they go hard on the feeling like she was going to win. Like the music behind her confessionals was incredibly epic. And I'm like, ooh, is he setting me up for a Pauline winners edit here? We obviously had her talking about her big plan to do the big idol play. I felt like Pauline was going all the way for a moment there.
Especially because we opened the episode with a very emotional Pauline talking about how hard it was to vote Sab out the round before. She'd been together the whole time. And, you know, we get a little bit of her talking about how she came in expecting to be one of the first ones voted out. And so to have made it all the way to Final 5, she's just really surprised herself.
I love Pauline. I wanted Pauline to win. I didn't win.
Like, I've been talking this whole time about how Sab was my winner pick. It was very close between Pauline and Sab. I didn't know which one to make my winner pick. Like, the first video, her talking about queuing, there was something in her. I'm like, I like this girl. She's going to go far.
Did anyone else get that impression, though, from the edit, that it was, like, quite a build-up in that episode?
I had clicked onto YouTube while it was live, and so I already knew. I'd seen who was in the final 3. Like I was at work and I clicked on YouTube and went, put it away. But I had seen the final 3, so I knew that Pauline wasn't there.
Okay, sad face. Danny, what do you have to contribute without being spoiled?
I was spoiled by Mars' Instagram story the day after, so I watched this whole thing knowing who won.
Social media blackout. What is wrong with you?
I didn't even need to. I just scrolled on in the morning and then fucking it was there, and I was like, God damn it!
To be honest, people shouldn't be posting.
But I didn't know how it got there. So, like, I knew that she was in the end, but I didn't know who she was with. I didn't know the lead up into it. So I was excited by all of that. I enjoyed the gameplay of it because I only knew one person who was there and obviously who won. But everything else was
should be
brand new for me.
Posting about the outcome the next day. Like not everyone watches it when it comes out. Yep. Like Dan wouldn't post something like that. Like, because, you know, I didn't watch it till Sunday night.
Yeah, Ma posted an Instagram story that had all 3 winners, like herself and Jeremy.
Well, I respect the ORCA energy of Ma wanting to revisit her own victory through this victory. Go, look, here's the 3 camera winners. There's me in the middle. Like, I get that. If I'd won a season, I'd want to do that in the middle too. I could just go in the middle right now. Like, look at this. Look how good it is. I'm right in the middle now. Look, I have control. Look here, right here. But like, I get where she's coming from. I get it. I'll do it too. But yeah, it's sad that people get spoiled.
Yeah, I would have, if I did, I'd be like a spoiler alert post first, because I know I have so many friends who are like from the community now that like follow me on social media. So I would have put like a spoiler thing first, and I could have like then snapped out of it. But no, there it was in full flight.
Well, that's
no, but as I said, I didn't know who else was with her at the final 3. I didn't know the gameplay that ensued up to it, so that was fun for me. That's why I say, like, there was still so much game left at 5, which was crazy.
I'll talk about my live feelings, and you can talk about your analytical reactions as you watch the pathway to conclusion.
Yeah, for me, being spoiled on who was in the final 3, while I didn't know who had won, I had an inkling that it was probably going to be Bethany out of those 3. And that's having not seen how they got there.
Well, we can talk about. Well, I didn't. Obviously, Danny can't talk about this, but I'll talk about it when we get there about number of predictions. Let's talk about the fall of the People's Champion. After I reset the goalposts, all he had to do was make it to this 5th spot, this finale spot.
Exactly where it needed to be. Everyone was cheering that knew the result. That yes,
they were very happy.
I think Sophie's post last week was a slight spoiler.
Oh, absolutely. She completely slipped up and then backtracked. She sent everybody an apology message as a DM. She was like, oh my God, I'm so sorry. I fucked up.
Yeah.
Absolutely. There was a spoiler.
Is this just your thought? Is this your mind cannon that she was sending out these messages, or do you know that she was sending out?
No, that's my mind cannon. I don't know that at all.
Head cannon. Head cannon.
It's my educated guess.
Oh, come on. So come on.
Yeah,
It's okay.
It's all right. It's fine.
But anyway, let's get into the episode. So yeah, we start with Pauline, and then leading up to the challenge, I had no idea, because at this point I didn't know. I knew that it was either Eden or Pauline. I didn't know how we were going to get to Eden, and everyone's name is being thrown around. Ed is saying to Pauline, "Let's do a final 3 with you, me, and Ed, and let's do Oscar next." Ed knows Oscar will be saying his name. Bethany trusts Oscar the least, wants him out. Oscar and Pauline are talking about Ed being a threat. Everyone's name is throwing out everyone else's name. And I was like, what is going to happen here? I don't know.
Yeah, for it to be so fluid at 5 is mental.
And for someone like Pauline to have an idol that we know she didn't need to play, like we knew that she was going to be going into that final 4. And she even talks about in the confessional doing the Marianne, pulling it out at the end for that purpose. But then once the vote turns on to Oscar, she thinks, no, I want to keep Oscar. Oscar's someone I can beat. And I'm going to idol out Eden, who's actually a pretty strong player. Incredible play for Pauline. Too incredible, obviously, in the end, because it's made her too threatening. But look, it was just down to she wasn't gonna. She probably wasn't going to win without that play, so she had to do it. But then it made her too much of a target.
I agree.
I think right here, I was like, Pauline poked her head out right as the guillotine was about to drop and decimated Oscar's game in the same move.
All right, Andrew.
That's
I know. I was like, I wrote that down. I was like, oh, I like that of my thought. That was one of my
Good job. I like that.
Very good.
Yeah, I think if she didn't play it, she would have probably got to final tribal and been able to pull it out, make that flashy move. But I don't know how many points that would have got her.
Mm-hmm.
I think especially if she doesn't save Oscar there, she's at the end with what? Bethany and Eden, or maybe Bethany and Ed, depending on who wins.
I'd say Ed. Probably Ed.
Ed. Does she beat? I think, Pauline and Bethany final tribal would have been really interesting, but without that idol play, I think it swings more towards Bethany.
Agree. And Bethany, just to be like, I've got an pre-recorded interview with Bethany coming up later. She is actually being a woman of the world, being a woman of the world tribe, being the only one from the world tribe that wasn't from New South Wales. Like, she is a woman of the world.
From Melbourne and Brisbane.
She's
yeah, I know. You're welcome, Eden.
So she's flying off to Chile or South America or something. In fact, she's on the plane now or left earlier today. So I've got a pre-recorded interview with her today. But the one thing that wasn't in the interview, right?
It's a long comment, Todd.
Yeah, I'll bring it up.
The jury was shocked when Pauline killed out the idol. It meant to be pulled out the idol, but then more shocked when she played it for Oscar when some players in their game perceived her as Oscar's GOAT.
They were all sad.
Did that flip it? Now Oscar was her GOAT.
They were both sad goats. We talked about this.
I think GOAT is an overused term. I don't know that even if, you got a 3-person alliance and Sab's out in front, that doesn't make the other 2 GOATs. I don't like how much that term is used.
I don't think either of them are GOATs either.
Anyone in this game was a GOAT.
No.
What I'll get to, because we're just prophesizing now what the different outcomes could have been and who could have won and what have you. What didn't happen in my interview, but then I spoke to Bethany for a while after the interview. She talked about the final immunity challenge, which she won. And she was going to win that in any circumstance. And it's a great little story that she told me. 2 weeks before going on Canberra Survivor, she'd seen a RHAP Patreon post from someone who's an acrobat saying that the way to win those particular challenges, I think Gabler or someone had just won one, and so they were talking about it. And the acrobat said the way to win those pressure hand challenges is to basically not have all 5 fingers holding tight at the one time. You have a couple, and then you basically release your fingers like this, not one, but you just keep a couple loose and you keep moving them. And if you look at her hand, she's doing that. Meanwhile, Todd's cramping up, Oscar's cramping up there because he's grabbing it all so hard. And she read that 2 weeks before and something she filed away and then pulled out at that final challenge. And that's why she was so locked in.
Yeah,
So
Wow.
she's
wow,
always winning. She's always winning that
that's
challenge.
impressive. Because
Plus,
you
as I
see a
said-
lot of people. I think we saw a couple of them drop out of the challenge because they're pushing too hard and it just like.
Well, that's in the
The
Oscars. It
middle
just kind of
breaks
like went up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's
He was
not
all-
from
when that- when
letting
that-
it go.
when that-
It's too much.
When they happened to Oscar, he was cramping up. So like he's just pushing because he just can't control the muscles anymore.
Yeah.
But I also, as I said to Bethany, as I'm sure you would appreciate, Danny, I also feel that on these endurance sort of pain challenges, anyone who's given birth is in a supreme advantage to anyone else because you've gone through a pain level and endurance level that no man has ever experienced, and no woman that's not given birth has ever experienced. And surely you can hold a stick for 40 minutes. And I don't know what it feels like, but I was there and I can imagine. I can empathize.
I'm not looking forward to that day if it ever comes.
But it would make you better at Survivor challenges.
Yeah,
Bethany,
well, okay,
really
then
good.
knock me out now.
Well, it's even just the mental endurance of it. Like it's like you just kind of like learn to tune out the physical hardness of your body because you're like, I've done worse than this. This is nothing compared to what I've been through. So it's just like, it's the same. Yeah, I think.
Aston, I've had to sleep on that small couch in the corner before. That's almost like giving birth, right?
That's right.
I think that's almost like being born as opposed to being
Aston's a
the
big
one
guy.
you
I get
were.
it. 40-year-old back pain is no joke. Eden also agrees with us that there was no goats.
Yeah.
So we get to that tribal, and that's really fun.
We've skipped over the first challenge.
Hmm.
We were talking. That was the final 4 challenge. The
Oh, yeah.
final 5 challenges. We got the 5 obstacles. The throwing a chicken into a bucket. What the hell was that? That was ridiculous.
I liked this challenge.
But everything else was, it was sort of reminiscent of the Survivor challenge where they've got the big obstacle course. I liked that. That was good.
And I liked that they
And then
reused the bollard thing from the Swamp of Sadness. Yeah,
and
it was
the
good.
tally again, production value. The tally at the bottom, just because everyone was all over the place, it told you who was where and where they're up to. Just
probably didn't need it because Ed was winning by a country mile.
I know, but it's good. Like it's just the
I know.
to put it on there. Like it's very smart.
No, I agree. I agree with Danny.
agree.
It was because he was winning, and then everyone came back, and then the numbers were. But he was, I think, far enough up on the puzzle that it really wasn't going to make a difference at that point. But it was good to watch. I enjoyed that challenge. I think that was really enjoyable. Poor Bethany couldn't get over the balance beam, but she eventually got there.
I think
that would have been me.
And for most Survivor fans, like that sort of thing is so because it is so reticent of like proper Survivor, like being involved in that is like so cool in the moment too. You're like, how cool is this? Like as stressed out as you are, like how cool like to do like some semblance of as close to a proper challenge and those proper final 4, final 5 endurance stuff where you're doing all different things all over the place. Like that was very cool. I really liked it.
Yeah, that would have been fun. So yeah, Ed wins and he gets some cookies. And he can choose one person to share the cookies with, and he chooses Eden. Was that?
Yeah, Eden's the only one who says yes, please.
Yeah. See,
my next thing here is like Ed doesn't like cookies. Like I fucking love cookies. Like I don't understand how you don't like cookies.
I'm not sure they were jar cookies. I feel like they were packet cookies poured into a jar, and that's a different story.
Okay.
Cookies.
I'm a sweet tooth. Give me that sugar.
Ed's here just rewriting the Survivor rules. Like, at the end of the day, if we were on this situation, if we'd won a final 5 advantage, we'd probably be, like, thinking strategically about who we're going to bring all this shit. He's just like, who wants it? And it was like, me? And they're like, okay. We wouldn't think of doing this, but it's actually a really simple and effective way of just removing the threat level of the social dynamic.
Eden, you have no idea how happy Dani is going to be with that comment.
I love Angelina Keeley. She's my favorite players of all time. I love that. Thank you for that reference. Well done.
You've hit your target audience right there.
God wants to.
Dani has dressed up as Angelina Keeley for a fancy dress party.
Did you have a jacket?
No, but I had a sign.
Yeah.
I said Natalie.
You needed a Natalie who was wearing a jacket.
I know, I did need Natalie. Yeah.
I couldn't. I was Sandra, so I couldn't do the Natalie for you.
Yeah, and you really did a different skin tone to probably do the Natalie.
Yeah, I was like, it's a fun
I'm the
line.
wrong skin tone for Sandra, but I didn't really care.
Yeah, I think you can. Sandra has more identified.
Like slip back to Angelina Kelly, and then I tweeted it and I tagged her in it, and then she reposted me. So let's just.
Sandra has more identifiable wardrobe that you don't need to.
Yeah, I had a red T-shirt. I had the army hat. Yeah. Anyway, we've gone off topic. We're only not far in, and we've gone off topic. But anyway, Ed says he doesn't think he needed immunity, and I've written lol. He needed it. They were coming for him.
Did he? He was never going to get any more than the 2 votes he got.
No, I know, but they all wanted him out. I think they were all more. I don't think they were concerned about him sitting at the end, but everyone wants to win that final immunity challenge, and they see him as like the person standing in their way. So, and the other 4 probably all think they win against anyone else.
I felt the whole time. I don't know if it's the love we've had for the People's Champion on this show. I don't know if it's because he is the People's Champion. I don't know if it's because he's making these amazing wikis. By the way, he and his friend have now developed up a basically all Australian LRG wiki that's coming together, which is amazing work. It needs more work, but like everyone can contribute to the efforts. That's the benefit of the wiki. But he's putting it together. So look, I don't know if it's all of these factors that made me think that Eden was just like a slam dunk winner if he got to the end, because no one else on the show seemed to think that. But the Eden made me feel that way. Like I would have been voting for Eden hands down if I was in that jury.
Yeah, I think. Yeah, I think so. I think so too. But he was the only one probably being seen as a big threat out of the ones that I thought of that final 5. I kind of thought that it was Bethany, Pauline, or Eden that had a chance of winning, and Eden was the only one that anyone was really looking at of those 3. So
he didn't even get the votes. Oscar was the vote.
Yeah,
like that's where the votes went, to Oscar.
Yeah, I know. That's what I mean. Like it was just
target.
Yeah, it's it shows you that. I mean, obviously we've got all the information. The players out there, they don't know what's going on from everyone's perspective. So it's interesting. And I think obviously Pauline became more of a
post-merge, Eden pulled his head back in a little bit and then became quite social across the board. Like pre-merge, he was quite outward in terms of like advantages and idols and all those sorts of things. Post-merge, I feel like he really like reined back the like outward play and really reined his social game across the players. So they stopped seeing him as like strategically threatening and just enjoyed him as a social player.
Another reason why it made sense to get rid of Ed either here or at the next vote is because while he only got 2 votes, and I think everyone was comfortable that he was going to get those 2 votes in John and Todd. I was pretty certain about that. If those 2 votes were available to not be given to Ed, they could go anywhere. Like those, I believe Todd and John's votes would have been very much up for grabs if it wasn't there. So it depends on how you look at your final numbers. And for someone like Bethany, she didn't need those votes. That actually worked out well for her. But for someone else, they could have looked at those 2 votes. Someone like an Eden who played a lot of the game with John and Todd, who were exposed to his moves earlier on in the game, may have seen Eden as a very viable voting option. So from Eden's perspective, he should have been trying to get out Ed, but obviously that wasn't his intent here either.
Yeah, and like we see Bethany talk about that. I've got it down in my notes that she wasn't as concerned about Ed being a jury threat, because she's like, well, he's going to get votes, but is it going to be enough? I don't think so. So she had the right read on the situation, I think. She was the most calm about him of all of them. She was like, yeah, he'll get some, but I don't think it's enough to beat me. I think the only concern of Ed would be if it was a particularly bitter jury, then Ed would potentially sweep up all of the votes just because he's so much more likable and he hasn't really pissed anyone off. But I don't think that was a danger. I don't think you were going to get a super bitter jury. You were going to have a couple of bitter jurors. But even I think...
Here, Todd says that he and John would have voted for Oscar if Ed wasn't there.
Oh.
Well,
interesting.
I'm glad Ed was there then. Let's move on with the discussion. No offense, Oscar, but I think that Pauline is a very well-deserving. Sorry, Bethany is a very well-deserving winner. I'm very glad she won. Not enough women win these LRGs as well, so it's so good that we have a female winner. I actually made this mistake on the interview where I said she's only the 3rd winner. I don't know how I was forgetting about the amazing Jay. She's the 4th winner, but that's still only a quarter of LRGs have had a female winner.
Hang on. Who's the other one then?
Sally. Sally.
Oh, I've got Sally. Yep. There you go.
That's right.
1 out of 3, Ed, saying 8 male, 4 female.
Ed is making
Ed's
the
all over his stats.
He knows all about
that, man. Well, there you go. And, so if you're a woman playing an LRG, Canberra's the way to go because they've got 2 of them.
Yeah.
So does Backyard.
Right.
Just don't play Sydney, Brisbane, or Melbourne.
Yeah. Anyway, so we've got still a lot of names going around. We see Ed tells Eden that he wants to have a final 3 with him and Pauline. He wants to take out Oscar. Eden wants the final 3 with Oscar and Pauline because he thinks that those 2 have played similar games and they'll split votes. That's not a bad theory. And Eden's talking about a Bethany vote for pretty much the same reason, that he thinks those 2 are going to split votes and he's worried him and Bethany will do the same. I actually agree with it from his perspective. I think that's the right call for him to make.
Absolutely.
And it seemed a bit savage, but Bethany told me on the interview, which we'll see in a little bit, that she was intending to boot Eden at the next vote. So he was just getting one in front of her.
Yeah. No, that makes sense. And then we see Eden butcher a Taylor Swift quote. I've got it in my notes. Because he said, to quote Taylor Swift, sometimes you've got to be the anti-hero. That is not the quote.
That's not the quote.
It's not.
And I was very disappointed. I was very disappointed in this.
Are you guys massive Swifties as well? That you're bothered?
Well, if you're not a massive Swift, if you don't know the quote, don't whip it out.
But he claims himself to be a Swiftie, which was even more frustrating.
I expect a comment from him in a moment. He's going to be losing it.
The quote is it's exhausting always rooting for the anti-hero. In my defense, Midnight's only been out for 3 weeks. Well, don't quote it then.
That's enough time to understand the lyrics of Anti-Hero, especially when that was one of the lead songs.
That would have been played on all social media. Much.
That is no defense, Eden. I'm sorry.
You've got 2 hardcore Swifties here.
I don't take it.
Can we just pivot to talking about the Kansas City Chiefs now, so please? Anyway,
I'll talk about Travis Kelce happily.
Continue.
I don't know American football. It's stupid. Anyway,
you're not a Swiftie now. You don't love Travis. What's going on?
Look, he's Mr. Swift is lovely, I'm sure. Look, again, we've got a lot of talk about votes. Oscar wants to go to the end with Pauline and Bethany, and I've written why. Don't want to go to the end with Bethany. That's a bad call.
But again, this is what I'm saying.
Hand in your Swifties as punishment.
This is what I'm saying, though. Besides Eden, no one is clocking Bethany.
No.
No one's clocking her as a threat.
Eden was only really clocking her as more that they'd played the same game. I don't know that he was even really clocking her as the threat that she is.
No, completely. And you kind of see it more in the next when it comes up once he's voted out and he starts looking back. But even in that moment, he's like, she's the biggest threat to my game, even if it's not a threatening. No one else is looking at her. Everyone else is just like, well, she's there. I'm like, you guys are crazy. I was just like her story, her social game, her strategy. I was just like, guys.
Yeah. No, but anyway. Look, Pauline is very upset that Ed won immunity. And we see her have the thought process of, should I save my idol and pull it out at Final Tribal? Or do I need to play it for Oscar? And then I've got a quote, when you play an idol on someone, all hell could break loose. And that was a lot of foreshadowing for her. We see Bethany and Pauline swearing that they're going to stick together and they're going to go to Final 3. And that I think they're both aware that they're targeting opposite people, but they're like, regardless of what happens, we're going to come back together at Final 4. And I loved that little bit of...
Their plan at this point is the two of them, women power with Ed. They know Ed's going to get 2 votes. They'll just fight for the other 6.
Yeah. That would have been such a good Final Tribal to watch. But we get the Tribal. And there's whispering with basically everyone. Ed's just sitting there chilling, being his little Labrador self.
Pauline starts. She tells Bethany that they're voting for her.
Yeah. I don't know how Beth sits still in this moment. I don't know how she sits still. I love a live Tribal, but if someone's just and I'm on the fucking end of that, and you've just told me they're voting for me, I'm up. Like if we're doing a live travel, I'm like,
let them allow that in LRGs, Danny. You're not allowed to get up.
in LRGs recently we can get up and we can do things depending on your host and your crew who can do it.
I believe Sydney, it was encouraged for you guys to live travel.
Yeah, until
no one got up. No one got up.
No, but we were because there were so many of us at that point in time, that particular live travel. There were so many.
I would have just done it and asked for forgiveness.
So I'm like, I love a live travel council, but get up. I got get up. I'm like,
they don't have the microphones to capture the dialogue. That's the issue. That's why you're not encouraged.
At that moment, I was like, get up and have conversations.
Yeah, but no.
That's right. Bethany looked at Eden and she said, "Are you voting for me?" He's like, "No, I'm not."
I think ultimately it was Pauline trying to work out exactly where the votes were going because she needed to decide if she needed to play her idol or not. Because if she played her idol there and played it incorrectly, I think that's the worst possible outcome for her. She's better off hanging on to it and pulling it out at final tribal.
I think you're right. I think she's worried that the votes aren't on Oscar, that they are on Bethany, who she probably shouldn't save, but I guess she could have done that if she just wants to play the idol on the right person. I think she's worrying, as you say, that she's got it wrong, and a bad idol play is absolutely the worst outcome, particularly on somebody else. I've never discussed that before. Like you play it yourself in Final Five and you're like, oh, I don't need a souvenir. I know I'm safe. You know, that thing people say that like means nothing because it's like you weren't comfortable enough not to play it. But I think trying to be a big move and play it on like someone else, particularly when there's only like 3 people you could possibly play it on and get it wrong.
If you had played it on Bethany and there was 0 votes on her, like that's
that looks really like you got no finger on the pulse whatsoever.
Yeah, correct.
Yeah.
I also enjoyed Eden, like after he realized what Pauline was doing and telling Beth about what was happening, he sits back to avoid anyone talking behind him. He sits back to clock all the conversations happening around him. He I really because he was like fully invested in the tribal, but the minute he saw Pauline start talking to Beth and like that panic, he sits back to like stop any crosstalk between Pauline and Oscar and to be very across any conversations that are happening. He literally stops talking to Dan and he's like, ladies, like what else would you like to say? He's like, I'm not letting this happen. I'm going to control. Yeah, I like that.
Yeah.
We kind of addressed that earlier. I think we all agree.
I think just to refresh it though.
He would have been in the final tribal, but would not have had a strong case to win.
Yes, I think she's in there with I think Oscar only turned on her because she suddenly was bigger and more impressive than him because she saved him with the idol. Pauline is here live saying Eden never told me that he thought we were all voting for Bethany until that tribal. Yeah,
she must have been shitting herself.
Because only Eden thought the vote was Bethany, but he was the only one actually doing that. Obviously, he hadn't pulled off that situation. I think it is Oscar and Pauline. I think they stick together, and I think they vote off Ed, so they're there with Bethany.
I agree.
But anyway, so we go to vote, and Eden finally finds the bag under the table, and he convinces himself
that the bag's still there. Pauline, why are you not taking your evidence with you? Why are you just leaving it there?
Stuff to carry. You don't want any evidence that you've got it, so stick it back up under the table. Why not?
I love that it was still there. I love the chaos that this caused. I love the chaos. The panic of this is fantastic.
No, it was like a rope in a bag. Why didn't Pauline take that with her? Is my question. Don't stick it back up there. Take it with you. Don't shred the document and then just leave the shredded paper lying around.
But it's just that Eden was convinced that it must have been Bethany. She's the only person that it could have been. And he changes his vote from Bethany to Pauline.
She told him she searched the booth and found nothing.
I think Eden is making a sensible decision here, a sensible guesstimate that someone didn't find the idol 5 tribal councils ago and then leave the bag and rope underneath the table. I think he's thinking Bethany's just found it when she's walked up to the thing and quickly just run back. And what does it matter if I leave the bag? I'm surprised the bag was left as much as Eden was surprised the bag was left. I understand where Eden is drawing that conclusion. I get it. I get where you're coming from, Chan.
Yeah. But anyway, we get Pauline plays the idol for Oscar, and then we had a cute little moment. Pauline and Bethany were holding hands as the votes were read. I thought that was really nice. I love when you see people doing that. And then obviously we get the 2 Eden votes negated, and then the first non-Eden vote to come out. The 2 Oscar votes negated. The first non-Oscar vote to come out is Pauline, and I'm guessing she shat herself.
Oh,
Yeah, I
shut
think she said
herself.
that.
It's like I just idle myself out here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we had a 2-2-1 with 2 votes negated. Like, you could, so I don't know. I think I've talked about this before. I love a 3-2-1. I love a 2-1-1. Give me a 2-2-1. That's pretty good too. I'll take that.
And
Plurality
of
vote,
course,
love it.
and if
And
the
look,
idol
without
doesn't-
that idle play on a revote, Oscar goes, surely.
yeah, surely.
Well, yes,
Yeah.
because the one vote was so Eden can't vote and Oscar can't vote, and so Oscar's 2 votes are still there.
Yep.
So yeah, it's,
Hang on, what? Okay.
so because obviously the people who are tied don't get to vote
Who's
again on
voting?
revote.
Ed is voting.
So Ed
Pauline
is
is
voting,
voting.
Pauline is voting, Bethany's voting. Ed and Bethany have just voted for Oscar.
Yes.
So even if everyone sticks to their votes, Oscar goes.
So, perhaps there's discussion. Perhaps there's commentary about where did this Pauline vote come from? Where was the Bethany votes? Apparently, Eden was voting for Bethany. I guess Eden can simply say, "Well, I didn't vote for Bethany. I voted for Pauline." Anyway, I think it was
very gracious in defeat. I liked that. He's got no hard feelings. He's happy with the game he's played, and he should be. He's played a great game.
He's won the drinks. He knows that his future self is going to be celebrating. He can tell. You can tell in his exit confessional. He's got some sort of prophetic mind because he's just so content with having finished 5th and taking the money out of my pocket. You can just tell he knew what was going to be happening in this moment. I could feel it through the screen and time and space. So the contentment was there, and he knows what was going to happen.
Yeah.
Here he is right now with his drink emojis.
Drink emojis.
Hmm.
Yeah, we're coming to Canberra, all 3 of us.
Now,
so yeah,
I haven't. Now, before we get into the next bit, I haven't gathered my prop because I was such a rush. Have you guys got your props for a little bit?
No, I can get it.
I didn't want to spoil the. No, you jump. Where you jump ahead?
What? I don't know. I don't know if that was what you meant.
Of course, that's what I meant. All right.
I practiced it. I won't lie.
All right. I'm gonna go get a coin. Danny's gonna get a coin.
Just one?
Yeah.
Stack.
Okay, I'll see how many I can find.
I got 10. Oh, it's just me. All right. Hi. Just vamping on my own. No, there's no warning. It gets done here. These guys sprung it on me. But yes, last minute, CK told us to bring some coins to test out this tiebreaker challenge. I have played around with it a little myself. Yeah, I would have crushed it. And then I was doing the thing where you put one on and you try and catch it, like the old cricketer move. I was bad at that. I don't know what to say when it's just me here by myself. This is awkward. Todd says you only need one. Yeah, well, I'm skipping ahead, but Pauline, you're in the chat. Did one just fall off the second one, or did the first one just fall off your arm altogether? And was it nervousness? I feel like it was probably, I would have been shaking in that moment. You're freaking out that, oh, thank God they're back.
Okay,
don't leave me by myself.
All right. Okay. I have a view about these coins. We're jumping ahead, but whatever. That's how I feel it. I feel this challenge was unfairly weighted towards men, particularly unfairly weighted towards a muscular man. And the point I'm making here is, if I look at my arm right here, when you have muscles in your arms here, it forms this ridge in here in my arm. So let's get some coins going. Mine's flat, basically.
So is mine.
Are we adding more coins?
This is really exciting content.
Well, we're seeing if it was an unfairly weighted challenge.
I mean, I don't necessarily think it's a male-female thing. Necessarily. I think it was...
I know, I lost the coins.
Yeah, see? It's a male-female thing, and look, I just won.
Well, let me just. I'm just going to disagree with you on this because we this was the Final Four challenge in Malviva, and Leah beat Merlene at this challenge. So there you
go.
Pauline
says Ed's total surface area is 5 times larger than mine. Yeah, I don't think it's strictly a male-female thing. I think it's more just Pauline is not a big girl. She is quite slim, and Ed is a well-built guy. So
The matchup was unfair. But I don't think it's a way to.
As you just said, Leah would have bigger arms here than I think Merlene would. As Sophie's saying,
I think they're exactly the same.
Sophie, you deadlift like 150 kilos. It's a completely different story of Pauline.
Ed has capacity to hold a savings account. Well, hang on, but there was Eden made a point. I was roll up. I think Pauline, the amount Pauline had to move to reach down to where the coins were stored, is what did it for her. I thought Ed would have had to reach down a bit further because he's taller. No.
Okay. Look, it's not a male or female thing, but the point is the male is more likely to have the larger arm, is the point I'm making. And I think a larger arm is an advantage in this. Obviously, Sophie, who could deadlift.
I mean, I just won,
kilos,
so, you know.
But you can deadlift over 100 kilos. Didn't we have this discussion? That's more I can deadlift.
I thought you were talking to Sophie about that.
No, she can lift more than you, but I'm just
exactly.
Fine. Yeah, it's not the same thing. Look, if it had been a smaller person and a smaller guy and a smaller girl, then maybe it's even. Maybe Jules versus a really skinny guy, like you'll smash him. I just felt like it was too body size dependent.
No, I agree with you.
But that's what happens. Luck is a factor in Survivor, whether we like it or not.
Pauline just has really thin arms.
What I was saying is there also a factor of she was probably nervous. Is she shaking a little bit? Is that why it's dropping off?
I just completely missed it. Like I looked down to write something down and it was off. I was like, what
the? Well, as Todd said, what we did here lasted longer than the actual challenge. I'm in the final 3, baby. Let's go. I'm winning. Go. Actually, Jules is in the final 3, but anyway.
Yeah, I'm in the final 3. But anyway, Pauline was probably so nervous as well, probably a bit shaky. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like I did well here, but I've got no pressure on me. This is just for points against you guys. If it's to get me in final 3, you can guarantee I'm shaking all over the place.
And Ed's like, whatevs. Oh yeah, I lost. Cool. Whatever.
Yeah, it wasn't like so itty bitty to stand up next to him in any challenge. I'd be like, "Fuck this guy."
But I think if he lost, he wouldn't care. Like he wouldn't have been nervous. He'd be like, "Oh yeah,
it's a fun weekend. How good was that?"
Yeah, how good was that? It's a great weekend.
Yeah.
A great time.
Well, that's all I like. Like confessionals up to this point are like, "How amazing is this weekend been? How great's this?"
It'd be like, how good was it?
We all need an Ed in our lives, I think.
This would have been his final confessional. It's like, how good was it that I went out on the challenge? That I didn't get voted out. Like these, didn't get taken out because they didn't like me. It was a challenge. It wasn't my day. Did my best, put in my best effort. But Pauline got the job done. Well done to her. Well done to Pauline. Well done to her.
Go get him, Pauline.
Do you like my Ed impression?
Yeah, that was good. But anyway, so before we got to there, after Pauline's idol play, we get everyone sort of reacting. Pauline said that she was wearing Eden's jacket and she had the idol in his jacket and then used it to take him out. Like, that is cold. That's some Sarah Lucina shit.
I love it.
I thought
it was fantastic.
Why was she wearing his jacket? Why wasn't it coming out of the skirt?
I don't know. The skirt probably didn't have that big of a pocket. I think that was more just to get it from travel back to camp, and then once she got back to camp, she didn't want it on her. I don't know.
And also, Eden would have loved that too. Find that out. Eden would have fucking loved that. Like,
he would absolutely love that.
I loved it. Like, yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, we get the Pauline and Oscar chat.
So before we move off this, and when the wiki is finally completed, I'll be able to check this for these things. Is this the only time an idol has been played on someone else successfully in LRGs?
Backyard 2.
Who played? Oh, yeah.
We had the merge vote where everyone idled everyone else out and we had to go to a revote.
Correct, you're right, yes. In Canberra.
Eden's saying in Canberra, yes.
Eden's going to be like my behind the guy scenes like
you're just a stat man. Thank you, Eden, for being here. We need you.
Yeah, you're right. Canberra, Backyard Exile for sure. Not Exile, sorry.
Yard the Park.
Yeah, absolutely. Marcus is here.
Marcus is here.
He's finished his show and now he's a fan.
They can listen to us now.
Okay, continue. Sorry, Jules.
So yeah, we get Pauline and Oscar talking about, yeah, but still you and me, we're going to the end together, and then Oscar confessional, yeah, no, I'm not feeling Pauline anymore. I need to take her out, which is absolutely the correct read.
He's buddying up with Ed, who's been not been buddies with it all the entire
and then
game.
Ed's like, I want to vote her out of spite.
Yeah, what was that killed me. What is he spiteful about? That she idled out Eden? His best friend Eden? Like, what the fuck?
I don't know.
His cookie partner Eden. He and Eden shared those cookies, and it was a very important social moment to him.
They bonded.
Therefore, take him out.
Yeah.
Oh,
Todd!
No, I wasn't really react to that. I was being kind.
Yeah, we were being very kind.
No, let's be fair. Todd is bringing out his orca energy. He offered his podcast services when we interviewed him, and I was like, "Do you have enough orca energy to join us?"
Todd realizes that he wasn't very snarky on the show, so
there's an orca award up for grabs.
He's auditioning for the orcas. I like it. I love it, Todd.
We've sent in our votes. Are they finalized? Can we change them?
No, you can't change them.
Oh, well then, sorry, Todd.
No, I mean, it's like join the panel for when MS4 comes out to be panelists.
Or Sydney 2, which I presume you're both spoiled on completely.
Oh yeah, we're both there.
We're both crew.
Yeah. All right. So they go back.
But yeah, so we get Pauline and Bethany conversation. Bethany still wants to sit with Pauline. She's feeling very much girl power. And I think both of them, they didn't want to sit at the end with the other person's pair. Pauline didn't want to sit with Bethany and Eden. Bethany didn't want to sit with Pauline and Oscar. And I think that's fair, because it's great if you get to Final Tribal, but nominating Spicy Todd for a future podcast gig. Yeah, I'm here for it.
It has to be Spicy Todd that's just slaying Marcus in the chat completely unnecessarily.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's what we want. We don't want subtle, strategic Todd who just hangs back and makes smart moves.
No, we want the spice. I want whoever covers Melbourne 4. You have my full permission to hang shit on anything that I do that you disagree with. So
100%. Give it to me.
Full permission.
Give it to me.
But anywe, so the whole thing about not wanting to sit with the pair.
You say one fucking negative word about that jet ski, you're off the show. I'm just going to we know about that when we get to it. But only props for the jet ski.
Future orcas, you've been warned.
Yeah. Anyway. Yeah, so not wanting to sit with, a pair. I think if you get there with a pair, that's great. But it causes issues at Final Four if the other person, if the three of us are there with someone else and then that person wins immunity, it's like, oh shit. You don't want to be the person that, they're going to turn on you. Todd says, I've been taking notes all season and I'm ready to hang shit on you. You're like, yes.
We like it.
Do it.
Yeah.
You can already do it with CK if you watch Melbourne 3, if you haven't already.
He hasn't watched it yet, but anyway.
Sorry?
He hasn't watched it yet.
Yes, well, there you go. Marcus, every week I study the Orca pod to learn and grow.
Bless you.
You don't need to, Marcus. We love you. We get a question from Bethany. So she's really happy that Eden is on the jury and that she didn't put him there, which I think, she was going to have to do it. But now it's like, well,
she's got
I didn't have to get my hands dirty.
Loz, she didn't put there. Eden, she didn't put there.
Very influential members of the jury and the game. Dream outcome. She's got their votes and their voice. Couldn't get a better outcome in something like this. The absolute dream outcome and so on. They were talking about this on RHAP the other day, that the new era meta has become voting out your ally, which is fucking stupid. You shouldn't be voting out your ally. You want your ally voted out and for you to have nothing to do with it. That weakens you, makes you less of a threat, and then they're on the jury talking how great you are. It's the perfect
If you're going to vote
outcome.
out your ally, you do it at Final Four.
Yeah.
And not a vote
which is what all these guys are trying to do. So they're playing a very smart game here.
Yeah. So we get to the challenge, and in true Survivor Canberra fashion, it starts raining in the middle of it.
It's not just raining, it's hailing.
Hail.
Epic.
Crazy.
I was like, did they set that up? Like, did they get the hose out? But no, there was legit hail. It was bad.
And I also want to go back. Dan has a real JLP this whole episode. He talks about the blue balls in the previous challenge, and this one he said that the hardest part is getting it up. I was just like slaying all over myself. Like I was like, Dan is killing the hosting. It was JLP all over the place. I thoroughly enjoyed it.
Yeah.
Thank you, Dan.
The thing I would like to know from the chat of people that know Dan, because I've only met Dan in real life once on the production of Melbourne 4. I've had lots of chats with Dan, like in Messenger and such, organizing all of these things. But he just seems like a real, like, straight up guy who wouldn't go into a lot of sexual innuendo jokes all the time. Like, is that just what he brings to the show, or is that Dan all the time? Sophie or Todd, or those of you that know him?
I guarantee you, I don't know this any better than you. I've spoken to him less than you have, but he strikes me as the type. He's that person that's quiet, doesn't really say much, and then you play Cards Against Humanity, and he's winning every round because he's coming up with the best ones. That one that's just like sneaky under the radar is hilarious, but just keeps it to himself.
He's a sneaky, dirty man.
Yes, I love it.
Is this usual, Todd? No, that's just what Eden's saying. It's just the show. It's just his host persona.
Showmanship,
Well, you know what?
we love it.
I fucking love it. It's fantastic.
We love it.
I died.
But yeah, as we talked about, we had the ball on the challenge, and Bethany had the information she needed, won the game, and won the immunity challenge. She wants to vote out Ed because he has learned the whole game in 2 days. Sophie, sexual innuendos from Dan every now and then. This is getting worse.
Yes. Very nice, Sophie. That's what you should have been doing instead of a welcome to country at the start of the season. Just
hey, don't shit on the welcome to country. That was great.
I'm not, but it could have been better if she came out there doing Dan, like a Dan impression.
So casual in and out with the innuendos.
Oh dear.
Oh, the chat is going off tonight. I love it.
Thank you all.
Yes, we need it. We are orcas.
That said, when there is a limited chat, we tend to be more cohesive and productive in our conversation.
Yeah, we keep getting
Yeah, we're so sidetracked.
Acknowledgement. Oh, she called you Chris. Wow.
I said welcome to country. Acknowledgement country.
Yeah, but I'm more that she called you Chris. Like, if someone called, that's like calling me Julia. It's like, who's that?
Or calling me Danielle. Yeah.
Danielle,
yeah.
I apologize, Sophie.
He retracts.
Yeah, Pauline is feeling a bit vulnerable, but she thinks Ed is the bigger threat. I'm going to disagree, but hey, that's the perception anyway. Ed's convinced he's not going to survive. He's like, well, that's me done. They're going to vote for me. Oh, well, good game. I'm done. Even when Oscar says, no, I'm going to vote for Pauline too. He's like, nah, yeah, sure he is.
Yeah,
sure.
right.
Whatever, I'm going out.
Yep.
Let's go.
It was the right move. It was the right move for Oscar, though.
Absolutely.
I agree. And I liked him trying to get Bethany to switch her vote, to be like, hey, this is what's happening. I'm voting for Ed. We can give him a final challenge win on his resume, or you can change your vote to vote for Pauline. Bethany's like, nah, I'm good.
Well, I actually think that is not what he wanted to happen. And one thing, as we're probably going to slide slightly into Final Tribal Council in a moment, that Oscar did very poorly was when he was asked to talk about his moves that he made. He referenced 2 moves, both in his confessional to us.
That didn't happen.
To the jury, didn't happen. He had setting up Aiden as an option that went nowhere, and he had his plan to split tribes and vote out Todd that went nowhere.
You don't want to be talking about the things I wanted to do, that could have done.
Talks about almost move, having smart thoughts.
Yeah.
The point is, he could have simply said his 2 moves were actually voting out Todd, like the next one, which he actually did, and set up through that split plan, but also taking Ed to the final. Like, he made that happen, and he's not talking about it at all. No, and it's not like Ed's over there knocking out of the park, where that's an embarrassing move that I brought Ed here. Like, Ed's performing is exactly as everyone expected Ed to perform. So why is Oscar not raising that as one of his game-winning moves when he's asked to talk about the moves? He had them. He had the moves.
Yeah. That's the thing.
We want to skip ahead to Final Tribal. We've talked about the 2-2, the tiebreaker.
Yeah.
It's Pauline goes out. She eats the last piece of her croissant in her final words.
The final
Daddy, I know you were over the croissant. But yeah, that's just jump straight into
it. I was like, why am I watching you chew this fucking croissant?
So chewy.
I know. I thought it was just like one of those funny, like awkward moments of like just sitting there watching it.
It's very long.
I thought she might choke, which is why they kept it on there, because it might have been like a blooper where she like chokes on the like flakes it. But
this isn't Sydney Survivor.
I can just imagine Dan in the editing room going, "This episode's running almost 2 hours. How much of this croissant should I put in?"
No, I thought it was good.
All of it. Oh, that's going in.
Yeah, let's just jump straight into final tribal. We get them sort of talking about their games beforehand, but I think everything they said there, they talked about in their opening statements. So, as I said, Oscar.
I want to talk a bit. Well, first, I want to say, obviously, you guys were spoiled, so you can't comment on this. I called as soon as this thing. I'm like, Bethany's got 4 votes at minimum, maybe 5. Ed's got 2. Oscar gets 1. I don't know where one of them's going. That was my call just before it started.
I didn't think about who was getting what vote. I just, as soon as I saw what the final 3 was, I'm like, oh, Bethany's got this.
So I thought Bethany had 4 locked in. I thought she was getting Eden. I thought she was getting Loz. I thought she was going to get Pauline. I thought those were locked in. Then I thought she was going to get 1 of Sab and Andrew. Now, I'm surprised she got Aiden. We can talk about that in a bit. But I thought she'd get 1 of Sab and Andrew. I knew, that Ed was going to get John and Todd. Even though Todd would probably be more of a strategic voter generally, I feel that he had such a relationship with Ed that that's where his vote was going to go, based his experience. And I felt Oscar could pick up 1 somewhere. I'm actually surprised that he got votes from Andrew and Sab, who are such strong players, though it's not like Andrew gave the vote in any sort of complimentary manner. It was reasonably insulting as he gave them the vote.
Yeah, when we get to the votes, I think there's a lot to talk about there with who voted for who. So we'll get there.
Anyway, I called it. I called it.
I hadn't thought about how many votes everyone's going to get. I didn't think about that.
I said that
Todd had said in his exit confessional that he wanted Bethany to win.
Yeah, but Todd loves
Ed.
Ed.
That got changed. He was voted out there was a big gap. A lot can change.
Todd loves Ed.
He does. The bromance. But anyway, so their opening statements, Oscar says he knew he was going to be the youngest, so he started off really well, I thought. I knew he was going to be the youngest. I was going to have to play a certain way. I wouldn't be able to be in control. That's all fair. But then, he kind of went downhill from there.
I think the biggest issue.
Shapes mean?
I think the biggest issue Oscar had coming into the final tribal council is Oscar had a perception that he was going to win, that he may have been the front runner, and so he gave a speech like he was the front runner when he actually wasn't and needed to earn some votes, which he could have earned, but he was not aware of his perception sufficiently to create his speech in the appropriate manner.
Yes.
Yeah, I agree. And then when he started getting, we get into the tough questions, he kind of was like, you could see he was really kind of.
Oh, wait a minute. Hang on. I'm not the front runner here. You you figured it out. Yeah.
That's got to be hard.
Definitely short and sweet.
She was like, there's multiple ways to play, multiple ways to win. This is what I did. Sorry, I've got a popping up. Sorry. Anyway, there's multiple ways to win, multiple ways to play. I choose to play socially strategic. I liked that. Putting those, because those two are interchangeable. They are the same thing in my mind. Social and strategic, I just can't have one without the other.
Right.
She's talking about playing with fluidity, keeping her options open, knew when to not push votes, which I think was really good. She didn't say too much. She's like, I'm just, ask away. I'll answer whatever questions you've got.
I think we've omitted to mention something, and that's the cameo appearance by Jeremy, season 1.
That's not till later.
Oh, is it?
That's later.
Yeah, it's at the end when they're counting the votes.
Stop jumping ahead. I've got it in my notes. We'll get there.
When I come up with a good joke, I just want to go with it. I'll do that joke later. It's fine.
Do a joke later. Put a pin in that.
We get to Ed's.
And then Ed basically says, I didn't do anything myself. You guys did it for me. You helped me. You helped me make the right call.
Let's just talk about Ed's.
He sold himself pretty short. I think he could have talked a lot about how well he did, and he didn't do it.
I think he does it throughout. When he
throughout.
The responses to his questions are fantastic. But if he'd said it right there at the beginning, all the stuff he says to the answers, I think he would have turned a few more votes in his favor.
Let's just talk about Ed's circumstances here. He's never seen a final tribal council before. He has no idea what he's actually supposed to say, and only figures out halfway through that he's supposed to grandstand about himself. Add in the fact that he's clearly the guy who's played team sports his entire life and been the star of the team, but then been super fucking humble about it. Like, even though he scored the 5 tries or whatever the fuck they do in rugby league, he's like, it was a team effort. We all got together. It wasn't just me, blah, blah. That's clearly who he is, right?
The rugby shame. I love it.
So, imagine he was probably like, to sit here and talk about how fucking good I am. It's just not in his DNA, right?
No.
And especially, he sort of worked it out halfway through that maybe he should be doing that, but it was too late. I don't hate what he did, and I do think acknowledging what everyone else gave him to help him learn, because that was true part of his story, was probably a good way to start with a bit more less on it. But if he really started hammering home that as I started learning the game, I learned from all of you, then I started putting my own moves in play, and this is what I did. Like if he'd got that message out there, I think that could have actually been a winning discussion. But as we said, too late, because he didn't know what to expect. It wasn't something he even understood what was going to be.
100%.
No.
100%.
So yes, we get Todd's question, and sorry, Todd, I know you're here. I hate this question. What's on your resume? I hate the Survivor resume. It's not about a resume. A resume is a list. What it is about is Eden's question. It's about the story. I prefer that over there. It's basically the same thing, but the story is much more important than tell me the big moves you made. Why are you the best person ever? And then Oscar, that's when he talks about the things that he didn't do, that he, like, I brought Aiden in, and then he went out. And then I had this set up so that Todd was going to go, and you would think John was the target. But you didn't do it because Todd won immunity. So he talked about things that he wanted to do that he didn't do. And as we said, he had plenty of things he could have said.
Even with the Todd one, he could have talked about that and said, but even though that didn't work, I'd already planted the seeds to get Todd out. I'd already been having those conversations. So even though Todd was trying to bring the yellows back together, it was very easy for me then to push Todd's vote at that next one. Like, he could have just gone to that and still used his little plan that didn't happen, but as a stepping stone to his actual move.
And he talked about bringing John as, like, that was the decoy vote for you. All he needed to say was, I brought John as well just in case you won immunity, so we still had an option, because that's what did happen.
Yeah.
That would have even been better.
If you had the numbers, you don't need a decoy, unless I guess an idol is a risk. But
yeah. But then Bethany says she wasn't really thinking about a resume; she was just focusing on survival. She said it's not her biggest move, but her most pivotal move. Which again, I agree with. I think sometimes the biggest move isn't the one that changes the game that much, but this was the one that changed things. Is her social connections that she built with Todd, Loz, and Ed to save her and Eden at the swap. I thought that was a really good answer.
100%. Absolutely. Smashed it.
It's a funny situation where Bethany's moves were all pre-merge, and generally the pre-merges are relevant. But that's what she's got to talk about, because she sort of went quiet once she get to the merge. She went to the back a bit, which I think is smart survivor play.
That was important.
But what she had was first tribal moves, and that's what she talked about. She'll talk in her interview. She talks a lot about her final tribal council strategy. So I won't say just stuff that I know that she was thinking now from that conversation.
Yeah. And then Todd says the resume question came from previous tribals where there was talk about building resumes. I still don't like it. Ed also wasn't thinking about a resume. He said that, sorry, Todd, I just don't like it. He wasn't thinking about a resume, but he actually answered this really well. He talked about getting John on side at the swap, because I think it was him and Todd that really were the ones that flipped John to keep him safe. And then he jumped ship after Todd was voted out. I thought, whatever. But his challenge performances, like, of course he can talk about that. How many challenges did he win in the end? 3? 4? 3.
Eden will have the stats.
Eden, how many challenges did Ed win? Thank you. But then, and he also talked about that he didn't just win and survive. He used the fact that he was immune to his advantage, which is something that I think, to go back to season 2, Nick didn't really do very well. Mm-hmm. That was the difference. I think that was the thing that lost it for Nick. So Ed fixed that, even though he hadn't seen it. Ed says 3 and the tiebreaker. So basically 4. Thank you.
Think he won. I think Nick won more in Canberra season 2.
He did, but I think that was the reason he didn't get the jury votes, is that people kind of just thought that he won his way to the end, didn't do anything.
He would have been voted out like a bunch of times if he didn't. Yes. If he wasn't immune. The thing is, Ed ended up not being immune sometimes, and he still didn't get voted out. Like, this is the thing. He was winning them, but it wasn't absolutely essential.
Yeah. So Aiden talks about Ed and Nick won 5. I did know that stat. So Aiden says that Oscar had told him he didn't want to make boring moves, but the jury thinks you have made boring moves. So talk about that. And he actually answered this quite well. said that he didn't make big or flashy moves, but he made smart moves. Like at the swap, he could have jumped, but that wouldn't have been a smart move. I think that's probably the only time where you can talk about, like, I could have done this, I could have done that, but I didn't because I did the smarter option, which might have been a bit more boring, but it was a smarter move.
I still think that's fine, but the incredible failure is that he had 2 moves that he just didn't mention, and I don't understand. They were great moves. They were game-defining moves, and he didn't mention them.
Yeah, Oscar, it's not about what he necessarily did that was wrong. It's that what he didn't talk about that he needed to. But anyway.
Great moves, yeah.
He asked Bethany that, hey, at the start you said you chose not to push a vote. Can you elaborate that a bit more? She kind of talks about the first vote. She didn't really push that too hard. But then she sort of more talks about that she chose to pick her battles as she went through.
She has a reason for going hard on the first vote discussion here with Aiden, which is in her interview, and I'll let her speak to it. But it's very smart.
Okay. I mean, hey, she got Aiden's vote in the end, which I think probably was the most pivotal vote. So, yeah, if what she had said had anything to do with getting his vote, I think that's very smart. And then he's asked Ed, you said you've learned everything around the people. What did you actually do yourself? And he's talking about the challenges. And then at the end game, he didn't really have any alliances, but he found new ones and got the target off himself, which, good answer. Loz, we love a salty queen. I was eating up every word Loz said during this. I think I've got the most notes about her jury speech. But anyway, she's like, Ed, I got no questions for you. I played most of the game with you, and, yeah, you didn't really do anything. And then
I think that's harsh. I think he did more than nothing. I feel that was a bit harsh.
No, I just love a salty queen. And she says, Oscar, you said you wanted people at Final Tribal Council who were on your level. Then you later said people you can beat. Why do you think you can beat Bethany and Ed with your mediocre moves? Loved it. And then he said, I've always been in control of my position. The swap was luck, but since then I've always been in control, whereas these two hasn't. Was he always in control? I don't know, but...
Oscar?
Pop off, Queen.
No.
Yeah, he wasn't in control.
He thinks he is. Again, this is the failure of his speech. He doesn't understand.
He was relatively always in a majority, which is where I think that, he was never technically on the bottom.
I don't think he quite understands his perception, so he doesn't quite understand how to colour these arguments in ways that people will listen to, as opposed to immediately go, that didn't happen. That's not happening.
Yeah, that's the critical thing. You need to know what the jury is already thinking, and you need to know, do I need to play into what they're thinking, or do I need to change their mind?
Yeah.
He needed to change minds, and he didn't
realise that. He didn't realise that. And that's not knocking that he hadn't played a game, but what matters is what they already think. It's perception, not reality. So you need to understand the perception.
Yeah. And Bethany didn't get a question, just a comment. Talked about how hard it is to be a woman playing Survivor. And yet the one time that I needed you went against me. And I thought she was going to talk about her own vote. It's like, oh, girl, Bethany didn't vote for you. But she's then talking about the Todd vote.
The Todd vote. And she needed, Todd was an important piece for Loz.
Absolutely.
And Bethany was a bit flaky on that vote. So,
yeah.
I get it from Loz.
Absolutely, for sure.
Yeah. John doesn't have a question. He basically says, I've already made up my mind. He's voting for his
You might as well have said, I've already written Ed's name down, buddy. It's
I've already got a parchment ready. I don't want to change it.
It's already in the urn, mate.
And then
you're the son I never had. Sorry, Nick. That's what you do.
Then we get Sab. She only asked a question. Oh, no, wait, sorry. She asked a question for Oscar. She says, we were pretty tight. When did you decide to take me out? And she's more specifically wants to know, was it prior to you hearing that I was wanting to take you out? It was before. I think that's accurate. He's like, I think we knew we were both looking to cut the other. And he gives a good answer here. He's saying the perception is that you were in control and I needed to show that it was actually me, or I wanted to be one of the three of us here to represent the moves we made. That was a decent answer. I liked that. And that is potentially what got his vote for Sab.
Well, you make them feel relevant because they were together. I just had a thought that I'd like to see happen, please. I would like a captain season with Nick versus Ed on each side, and then I would like John to be the loved one visit, and then he has to choose which of them he wants to do a challenge with. we made that happen, please?
All right, yeah.
No idea. Interesting.
Rivals. It's called Rivals, and they're rivaling for John's love.
She asked Ed, you're the big, strong guy. It's, difficult for a big challenge threat to get to the end. Did you have a strategy coming in? And then he's, I was pretty naive coming in. I knew I'd be a physical threat. My strategy was to put myself in the majority. Look, that is the most basic survivor strategy, but good on him for at least acknowledging that.
Acknowledge the big guys probably get taken out, like that sort of stuff.
But he's offered myself as a tool to other people to use as a vote and survive the next round. That's a good answer.
And he did do that a lot.
I really like that.
He said that early on, that he wanted to be underestimated and he wanted people to, use him. So, yeah, he's got receipts for that one. And Sab doesn't ask Bethany a question. She just says congratulations. So, yeah,
I think that Ed probably deserved more than 2 votes, if I'm being perfectly honest. I think I don't begrudge Todd and John for voting for him. John was obviously fixing to vote for him because they voted for him because they liked him. But I feel like Ed actually played, for his archetype, his physical position, how social and likable he is. He did a really good job. He
should have been taken out.
Yeah,
way earlier.
And people talked about him the whole game. People talked about him as a threat the whole way through, and no one ever really took the swing.
Look, what Ed needed to do was just whatever strategies he had, he needed to really explain them as his priority at the Final Tribal Council, because everyone already knows he's got the skills and challenges, and they already like him a lot. So just give the people that want to vote for a strategy some strategy to vote for. But he just doesn't know any of that.
If he had even a little bit more understanding about how this game works, I think he's our winner.
Yeah.
I think because it was being the 4-2-2, it was a relatively close jury vote. If he takes 1 vote away from Bethany, it was very, very close.
I think also if the game was for, this is the thing, if it's for money, right? If it's the 100, $500,000, or it's the $1 million, then some people think, who do I actually want to give this money to? You give me a reason to give it to you. There's no.
Also, for $500,000, I feel like he would have maybe watched an episode or 2 before coming out.
There's no clear front runner in this 3. This is the point I'm making. I don't think I called those votes based on these people that I've spent a lot of time analyzing, but it wasn't super obvious what was going to happen.
Not agree.
Can I talk about Jeremy now?
No, we're not there yet. Calm down.
A 40-minute interview to play.
I'll get there. We get Andrew's question. Asked Bethany, you seemed confused at a lot of tribals. Was that real? She said at Todd's vote especially, that was genuine. She didn't know what was happening. And she brings up a really good point. I think sometimes it's important to talk about your flaws. And she said that she struggled to leave conversations when she needed to. So she was chatting to someone, needed to go talk to someone else, but couldn't leave this conversation. And that's why she didn't know what was happening going into that tribal. So, yeah. And then she likes to throw in answers to questions that aren't asked of her. So she talks about, she couldn't believe why she wasn't being seen as a threat. She only caught 1 vote the whole game, and she thinks she did a really good job with threat management. It wasn't a question that she was asked, but hey, throw it in there. Why not?
She had to get only got 1 vote the whole game in somewhere. That's an important thing to mention. Throw
it in there. And then to Ed, he says, I had 1 question, tell me man to man if it was me. And Ed's like, yeah, I lied to your face. They just had a little laugh about that. That was a little broy moment. Didn't ask anything.
I think Andrew liked it though. Didn't vote for Ed. Don't think he liked it 1 little bit.
No. And then Pauline asks, I like this question. Tell me about the time when something went wrong and how did you regroup? I love this question. And Ed says, Todd getting voted out. He was blindsided. He knew it was either him or Loz next, so he jumped ship to save himself. I don't know how much. I think I talked about this when it happened. I don't know how much that saved himself. I think Loz was probably always going to go before him. But, hey, good on him.
I think he started having those conversations before that vote, though. He started seeing the writing on the wall. Even with the Todd vote, he was starting to chat to others, talking he was opening the threads for that to happen. Like, he didn't just like, he goes, oh fuck, like I'm stuck here with Loz, let me talk to these people. He was having those conversations knowing that it would have to happen eventually. He like opened those portals to make it seem like that was always an option rather than being like, I'm jumping because I'm desperate, which he was.
Oh, and you're correct, absolutely correct, Danny. And then as soon as Todd was voted out, it wasn't women and children first. He was throwing Loz's name under the throne as quick as he could. He was like, you know, I've worked for
She's a big threat. Let's get her out.
Yeah. Like there was like he no qualms about it. Just straight into like jumping ship and throwing her out in front of him. It was
kind of like when at the start of this episode when Pauline's upset about Sabu, he's like, I don't care. I just, you know, whatever.
Yeah.
Todd says Ed would never have turned on him. Well, all right.
Probably. I think so.
We love a bromance. So yes, for Pauline's question,
special relationship, Todd. I had that with Max. You'll never let it go.
All right. Gross. Oscar says the merge vote went wrong. He didn't want Aiden to go, and after that, he wanted to be a bit more direct with his strategic talks because he feels like if he had pushed the John vote a little bit more, things would have gone differently. That's an acceptable answer, I guess. I think there were other times where things maybe didn't go his way that he could have talked on a bit more, but anyway. Bethany says it was the first vote of the game. That didn't go her way, but also the biggest one was John flipping at the swap. But she never gave up. She didn't throw Eden under the bus. She just kept pushing through to build those social bonds with Loz and with Todd and with Ed. And yeah, I think that was a really good answer for her. And I did talk about Ed. So I was like, did I talk about Ed? But it's on the next page. And then Eden, I like this. Even though it's kind of the same as the first question, I like it phrased this way. What's your story? And how do you differentiate yourself from the others? Ed basically says his story is just he's learned a lot from the people he played with. Whatever. Bethany's story is that she was grinding. She's starting from the bottom. Things didn't
started
look
from
good.
The bottom, now we're here.
Yeah. Things didn't always look good. And she relied on herself. She talked to herself in confessionals, which I think that's a really good thing to do. I've done that when I've played orgs. I've been doing a confessional and literally changed my mind mid-confessional because you're just talking it out loud and you go, oh, hang on. So I think that's really clever. And then she talked about how for months she'd been working for this. She'd been going to the gym. She's been practicing her puzzles. She's listening to RHAP Patreon and got a tip to win the final immunity challenge.
Apparently she was practicing those tanagram puzzles. Were they called?
That did not show.
Yeah.
Anyway.
I thought that when she said it, I was like, didn't Squin win that? But sure, okay.
I love the gym workouts to come on the LRG. I love that dedication. I know she flew from another country, so obviously dedicated.
That was enough.
I love the gym workouts.
And yeah, I'll even show you screenshots from my Fitbit. Oscar says his story is that he's a super fan. He didn't make flashy moves. He played a strong, consistent game from the middle of the majority. Sure.
Yes, and he made two really big moves that he refuses to talk about.
Yeah.
That might have taken him, that's fine, but I also did this. Oh, that'd actually be pretty impressive.
So we see the jury go to vote. We see a vote for each of them. John votes for Ed because he says good social game and his challenges. Also, I'm in love with you. I want to adopt you as my son. He left that out, but I'm just putting the subtext in there. Andrew votes for Oscar because of his consistency.
No,
look, he trashes him along the way.
Yeah, it's like you made consistent mediocre moves, but at least they were consistent.
Yeah. And Eden, no surprises there, votes for Bethany because of the journey they've been on together. And then we bring out Jeremy, season 1 winner, to present the check. CK, what do you want to say about that?
Ma was like right there. Like, why aren't they both going out?
I know.
I did think that. I was like, Ma's there.
Spoiled the whole fucking thing the next day. It was like, I'm a winner too. Like, oh, okay.
Oh, season 2 hadn't aired.
Okay, all right, that makes
all
sense.
Right.
I was like,
I'll allow it.
You ruined our joke with your facts, but fine.
I'll allow it.
Yeah. All right, cool.
All right, so yes, Jeremy presents the check. We get a Bethany win 4-2-2. Now, are there any votes that we want to talk about first? Because I think there's a few things that can be discussed. I think Aiden's vote was surprising and probably the most critical.
Todd has just been saying everything Eden
Because
said.
I think Eden's on YouTube, Todd's on Facebook, and Facebook is obviously a little bit behind.
Yeah, because there was this one as well, like you know,
it's identical.
Okay, obviously YouTube's the place to be. The reason why Eden's claiming his brain. The reason why Aiden voted, like, I don't know, I'm going to make this is my view of why Aiden's done this, and I get it 100%. Bethany talked about him a lot, which is a factor. But I've done this in orgs, and I'm like, who can I vote out here? And who do I have something cute and cool to say when I vote for? And he's like, ooh, I'm the only one who gave her that vote. I can be the only other. I can give her a vote here. Like, how great's that of a thing to say in like the voting booth? That's like great TV. I'm gonna definitely get shown on the like thing when I vote. Like, I absolutely think like he may have been leaning that way anyway. I don't think he felt particularly enamored to Oscar's like, oh, I built something with you and then just trashed you discussion. And so I felt like him be able to say, that one vote you got from me, and now here's another one from me. I felt that was for him. That was probably the thing that took him over the edge.
Look, I wasn't thinking a lot about who was going to vote for who, but I would have thought Aiden would have been a vote for Oscar, personally.
Yeah, I think he might have started that way. But Oscar basically did nothing for him. And
I think Aiden cared too much about making TV.
I agree with you, Aiden. I don't think Aiden really cared.
Aiden has watched almost as much of these LRGs as you have, Aiden. Like he's a fan.
But since, not before.
But it brings me to
he watched Warren Night.
Thought. I mentioned that this was a close vote. If Aiden had voted for Oscar, we'd have a 3-3-2. We get for the second time in Australian LRGs and second time in Canberra, we get the third member of the jury being the deciding vote. Who does Ed vote for, do we think? The chat probably knows. They probably played this out. Who do we think Ed votes for?
Oscar.
I agree. And then what if one of Bethany's votes had gone to Ed and Oscar's cast in the final vote? Who does Oscar vote for?
Ed.
So basically Bethany needed to win outright.
That's because it's hard to be a woman in Survivor.
Yep.
Because the bros vote for the bros.
This is true. But yes, that takes us to the end. We get Oscar votes Bethany, I think, but Ed votes Oscar.
Okay.
I think. He got Todd with the bit. Todd's like,
Sophie, the full voting confessions from the jury were interesting.
Release them!
Release
we want to see that, please.
Release them!
So, if we're in everything else, I will bring in... Oh, by the way, I like that thing they did at the end where they had like a song and like they showed all the people that got voted out, except they had them in the wrong order. Amy doesn't deserve to be fucking shown second after she won like 4 challenges. She's down.
She was voted out second, but she is not out of the game second.
Wait, I thought it was an unfair
the last person out before merge.
Justice for Amy.
Yeah, unacceptable. Did not like that. Subscribe. Yeah, you should subscribe to our page. Subscribe to the ORCA Pod. Now, I like that. I liked all of that production. Look, we'll come back for a little bit at the end if you want. I'm going to put this interview on now. It goes for like 40 minutes. Overall, what a fantastic season. The cast was amazing. The production was excellent. But I think what this season has done more than any other season, and we've watched a lot of them recently, is the storytelling. The storytelling of the players and the game they played was so well told. I feel that I really know 15 of the 16 players really, really well. Like, I know what they're about. I know what they value. I know the sort of Survivor game they wanted to play.
Yeah, we don't really know Pauline that well, do we?
Oh, harsh. I'm obviously talking about Jay. But, like, Jay's about the only one, the first boo who then lost the challenge right away, that I don't feel I know anything about. Every single other one of these people, I feel like I really got to know them over the course of this journey and how what they did impacted this Survivor story. And that is the hardest part about editing any of these things, to tell a captivating story where all the characters and care about. And I think that Dan needs to get a lot of snaps for what is an incredible editing.
Absolutely.
Sorry, my cat's being a pain in the ass. But yeah, no, I completely agree. I think not only we got a narrative from every single person, we got the story of why Bethany won. We got the story of why Loz lost, why Sab lost, why Pauline lost. Like, you know, it's hard to tell all of these stories intertwined with each other, and it was done so well. And I think we've talked about it, how good Dan's editing is. He's gotten better every single time. And yeah, I think, yeah, I really enjoyed this season.
And it's where it really counts. Like,
even the croissant got a great story.
We haven't covered, for example, and I know you haven't really watched it, the Backyard 4, where the production is next level, and this isn't on that level. Like that production in Backyard 4 is insane, but the storytelling is a completely different skill, and I think that it's the one thing Dan has over everyone else in the community editing these things. He does the storytelling the absolute best.
Smashed it.
I agree. And I think, not to say that other LRGs don't care about their players, but what you see with Dan is you see how much he cares about all 16 people that played. He wants to do them all justice. You know, we don't see him dumping on anyone. You know, someone might get a little bit of dodo music, but it's not, you know, it's not anything too bad. He gives them all a positive story arc. No one's really a villain, which I think, you know, these people couldn't really play as villains, but, you know, I think...
Eden was the villain, right? I know he was our champion, but Eden was the villain.
The closest thing you'd come to a villain, but they don't really... Oscar thought he was the villain.
Maybe Andrew a little.
No, Andrew was just sort of comic relief in this season. Maybe John a bit. John was a bit of a villain, maybe.
Eden was the anti-hero.
Do you think John could have been a villain?
If he had been in a bit longer, he could have had the potential. Sophie's basically echoed what I have said. He cares so much about the players and treats every edit with so much respect. Yeah, and that really shows.
All right, so we'll come back at the end if you guys hang around, and then we'll talk about what's going to be coming up in our coverage. But I will now be bringing on the interview. Now, in the chat, you're very active, which is great. If you can't hear this, please tell me right away, and I'll figure out what I need to do. You guys can comment. Fantastic to have you with me, Bethany, the winner of Canberra Survivor versus the World. How apt that the only person who was actually from the world won the season.
I know, right?
I made a few jokes on this show that it was pretty much Canberra versus New South Wales, because a lot of them just appeared to be from across the border, but you can't fly from another country. I believe you're the first person in any of these LRGs that exist in the 12 to come from another country and win. And to do that on a season where you represented the world, I think couldn't have been more fitting. What in the world were you thinking when you, as a mother of 2 children living in another country, decided to travel to Australia to play an LRG?
Well, so the thing about me is that I will pretty much just say yes to anything. And so when Daniel asked me if I would apply, I actually applied and was cast on season 2.
Okay.
But because of like COVID and travel bans and stuff, I couldn't come. So like when he asked me to apply, and I'm like, well, of course, like I'll just say yes, and then I'll work out the details later, you know?
Do you know Dan? Dan, how did that come about? Season 2.
So we met during COVID, doing like online Survivor sort of type games. So we had played kind of mini games together, like kind of one day sort of versions of Survivor, and so we had met doing that.
So you're a big orga. Have you done the like 5-6 week orgs?
No, well, I did one and I got voted out first. So I feel like that's not for me. But for 1 or 2 days, I can be nice to people.
Were you nice for those 2 days? You certainly weren't nice to the confessional.
Yeah, well, like that was surprising. I feel like one of the things I actually said in my intro package was that I can be quite fake. So like I mean, I obviously could fake it enough to people's face, but then you've got to have some kind of outlet where you vent a little bit on the day because it is just so stressful. Um, and so sometimes in the confessionals or in the voting booth, I may have said some things that were a bit mean, but that was more just like it was almost as like a stress release.
Oh, for sure. Did
Yeah.
you, no, if I'm quoting this wrong, please tell me. Didn't you say you were a bitch or a cold hard bitch in the intro video, something like that?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. I feel like I mean, I feel like I went in thinking that I would be able to play like a very low emotion game. And it really turned out to not be the case. Like I feel like if anything, I was like the biggest crybaby out out there. So
What was the hardest thing that you had to do that you found emotionally challenging?
um it was more just the fact that like throughout the throughout the days, the the stress just felt like it had to come out of me somehow. Like, and the pressure was building. And I think like once you get past the first one or two votes, you sort of start to think, oh, I can do this. Um, but for me, like it felt like every vote I was in, I just felt worse and worse and worse. Like
Mm.
every time I sat down, I thought, oh my God, it's definitely going to be me. Um, and I think in the finale, Andrew actually questioned that of me. He said like, "Oh, you appeared like you were confused all the time, and you didn't know what was happening." And it wasn't really that I didn't know what was going to happen. It's just like I always felt like there was pressure in the back of my mind that like, oh, like what if I've just like missed out on all the social cues, and it is actually me, and I'm going to totally embarrass myself. And I feel like a lot of the crying I did was like after we voted someone out um, it was more like relief
Mm.
that it wasn't me that round.
Yeah. I think
Um,
it's interesting to touch on that because I think that your final tribal council performance was excellent, but I actually think that part of it was the weakest part of the speech because to go into the tribal council and say, oh, look, I was always worried that it's going to be me. When from the jury's perspective, and I think the viewer's perspective, you actually had quite a good control on the game. Now, obviously, you had a level of doubt. Everyone has doubt. I don't think anyone goes into these tribal councils 100% sure, but most people can just sort of push down the doubt and be confident in what had occurred. And that's what you were doing like 99% of the time during the game. You were confident, calm, and collected. So to say that you were so unsure, I think was, in my view, feels like perhaps a bit of a like a hyperbole about how you actually felt because I think you were in more control of the game than you were letting on at that final trouble.
yeah, possibly. Um, uh, the I never felt like that it was just me in control. Like I feel like a big part of my game was building relationships and having allies at most points that like I could trust.
Hmm.
Um, so I never felt like it was just me controlling the game. Like I never felt like I was the puppet master and everyone was just on my strings. So it, and like when you play, I think when you play a social game, you you are having to like rely on the other half of that social connection. So like while you can be sure of yourself and know that you've done all the work every round, there's still like 5% where
Yeah.
the other person could just be going to do something completely random. And maybe not Pauline, but certainly someone like Eden, you could go into a tribal council with, and there's always a risk that he's going to do something uh completely random, like to make a big move or to build his resume or do you know what I mean?
Yeah, well, let's talk about Eden, one of your strongest relationships in the game. And how did you, we'll talk about how that built in the time on the swap, but how did that feel in the real time, or perhaps when you found out later that he was actively looking to target you at that final five vote and only actually switched his vote once he got suspicious about the missing idol? And you had Pauline next to you telling you they're all voting for you, Eden's voting for you, and you're trying to look at him like you've been together the entire game at that point.
Mm.
How was that moment?
So um like I knew that I was going to turn on Eden at the next vote. anyway. So Pauline and I had a discussion where we had both agreed that we had to, like, we were running under the assumption that Ed was just going to win out. So we had no choice, and it had to be the two of us and Ed.
Yeah.
And that we were both going to have to get rid of our closest ally in Eden or Oscar.
Yeah.
And it really was just a matter of, is it going to be Eden and then Oscar, or the other way around? And obviously, like, we both preferred for it to be the to be the other way around. Look, actually, I think for Pauline, if she had let Oscar go at that point, then she would have been like, Ed and Pauline and Eden had a final three, and they would have just turned on me at the final four anyway, I feel.
Yeah, well, that's an interesting point, because, you know, I don't know if it was our podcast getting so excited about Eden as the people's champion, or what it was, but I actually feel Eden played an amazing game. From a viewer perspective, I would have felt that picking between you and him as to the one I don't want to come with me would not be an easy choice. I think that you would both be incredibly threatening to have at the end if I was Pauline or Ed. A Pauline who didn't make the idol play, obviously, we're talking about here.
Yeah.
So what was it about you, Eden, you that was sort of standing out as a bigger threat than Eden, you know, for that final four grouping, if that was the case?
I think probably it was that whole thing of, if you've played a game with someone the whole way through, you need to distinguish your game from theirs. And it's way easier to do that at a final three if they're just not there, and you can claim credit for all the moves. So, and Eden and I did make a lot of moves that were together. And even when we did make kind of separate moves, we always sort of managed to, like, come back to each other. I think for Eden's game, now this might be a hot take.
Yeah, I know.
But,
Bring it on. We love you. Bring on the hot takes.
Eden's biggest mistake was getting rid of Loz when he did.
Mm-hmm.
He and I were, like, at that point, like, so at that point we were perfectly positioned right in the middle of the original Ginandera trio of Pauline, Oscar, and Zab, and with the Ginandera 2.0 of Ed and Loz. We were, like, right in the middle of that. We could have gone either way. And in my mind, what I would have liked to have done was just go back and forward between the two of them.
I think you said that on the show. That you said to Eden, that's what we should be doing.
Yeah, this is what we should do. This is my plan. And when he decided to go, so, like, we had just taken out Todd, we should have swung back and gone, taken out Oscar, and then used Loz to help us get rid of Ed, right? Because at that point, Ed was getting to a point where he was almost unbeatable in any of these challenges. But Loz could have probably beat him in some of them.
Mm-hmm.
So we didn't have that tool to help us get rid of Ed in challenges. So we then were stuck with Ed until the final three, which was not, like, it's never great if you know that someone's just going to be able to win out and is just automatically going to suck up one of those final three spots. So I felt like if Eden hadn't done that, we would have just been able to kind of go and pick and choose, like, sides. I don't think that either of those sides would have got back together and let it just be all original Ginandera at the final. Does that make sense?
Yes, I think it absolutely makes sense. You said it on the show. Look, you know, you got the benefit of hindsight in the video, and Loz was talking about how she saw you and Eden as her final three in any event. I don't think she was going to get too bothered about Todd going. She was going to get rid of Todd eventually herself. And the fact is, you know, Loz could have beaten him at something. Certainly, there's the challenge that you and Eden helped Ed win, so you could get rid of Sab. You could have done it on that one.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Well, that is a good point. But at that point, where we didn't necessarily have the numbers, we would have been in, like, a 3-3 situation, and that's never a good place to be.
No, because you would have had a 4-3, because you would have grabbed up Ed and Loz.
No, I mean, if we had tried to get rid of Ed at the flipping the tile challenge.
No, you shouldn't have done. No, you shouldn't have done. You got rid of Ed at the. You were right to save Ed there and get rid of Sab. What I'm saying is, if you'd been flipping back and forth, you could have used that challenge to actually get rid of Ed.
Yeah,
by
yeah,
that point.
exactly,
See? Yeah,
exactly.
yes, yeah. You could have made sure he lost that one instead of made sure he won that
Yes.
one. Yeah, yeah. The It's a interesting. I felt it was a. I don't know how much you went into this with intent with feminism and the plight of women on Survivor to be such a through line of your story. Obviously, we covered it on the program where I don't know if you saw Dani and Annabel reenacted your fantastic conversation with Loz. One of the most powerful moments and one of the best episodes, I think, of any LRG that we've seen. I assume that, and I feel at the time that you must have had a very unpleasant neighbor on the plane on the flight over.
I did, yes, very much so.
Felt very, very recent about the men taking your space.
Yeah, like I feel I feel like probably for maybe like the last 5 years, for me that's really become like forefront for me. Especially like watching a shit ton of Survivor. And when I said like, oh, I'm sick of men on Survivor, I didn't specifically mean these men in the season. I just meant for the last X amount of years where we went, I'm talking about US Survivor, not Australian Survivor, but where we went for like, I don't know, 10 seasons or something with only men winning and women getting to the final three and having played a better game and not getting votes. And just all those kinds of things, like, and constantly men being threatened by women's alliance or like the threat of a women's alliance. Like, you guys make bro alliances all the time, you know? So like, yeah, yes, it was in the forefront of my mind that I was going to go into it without with a view to that I know that I'm a girl's girl. I'm better with girls. I'm better when I've got women around me. So if I'm playing a game, of course I'm going to want to align with them.
Yeah.
And Eden.
Eden, who self-described in his video that he hates men and wants to.
Yes, and I think I said that. I'm a bit of a man hater. So like I felt like that was just fated that we were together and that first alliance we built was me and Anthea and Maddie and then Eden, like, and then when we got swapped, I looked at that kind of swap group and thought, oh, like Eden and I just don't fit in with this group of people. These are not our people, you know, like these are not the people that we would typically like hang out with or whatever. Very like, you know, golden retriever, alpha female, you know, that kind of plus John.
Yeah.
and
Todd was probably the one you thought maybe the most you could, and you did try to build a relationship with Todd.
Right at the start of the swap, I figured Todd was going to be my best bet of who I could bond with, and we did. But yeah, I just felt like I couldn't ever 100% trust Todd because he always looked like he was scheming.
He was a schemy, sneaky player. That's who he is.
Yeah.
This is our kind. Easy.
Yeah. Yeah, he always looked like he was scheming, like in the background. Like you'd be watching him. Yeah, you'd be watching him and you could literally see wheels turning in his head. And like while that's when you're like closely aligned with someone, that's good. And they share those kinds of things with you. But he never really shared his like thought process with me.
Yes.
Which made me feel like I'm not part of that. You know, like he's just going to use me as a tool. And, you know, that's part of the game. So
I made a lot of that. We're talking at the swap where Eden found the defector advantage right in front of Loz. And instead of immediately saying, well, I'm just going to get out of here and I'm safe, he's said, I don't want to abandon Bethany in that way. That means she's just going to go, what can I do? How can I use this in a way? How was it seeing that on the replay, that sort of loyalty was there in such a strong way?
Yeah, no, that's why you pick someone like Eden as an ally, like, because they do think big. I think he's really good at thinking about the big picture and looking at other options. And so to see that he's like willing to do that and work with me, but at the same time, if I'd found out
Yeah,
way I wanted to abandon him, because if you do that, if you save yourself for a round, you're probably just you're the next one on the chopping block. Like if you try and figure something else out, like there's always a way. And they talk about, oh, you got to find a crack, find a crack. There's like you should never give up. There is always some kind of scenario, someone that you can go to. And when Eden came to me after having initially had that conversation with Loz, I just couldn't believe it. Like I couldn't believe that she was willing to like throw everything back up in the air and start again with us. And I feel like that conversation that she and I had, so Eden had the first conversation and she and I had the second conversation. And like that was the big turning point. That was the bit for me where I felt like, oh, actually I can make some moves here. Like there are people here that know the game well enough, that are willing to play hard, that are willing to make moves. Not that playing and sticking with an alliance or whatever isn't a valid strategy, but it can only get you like so far.
Yeah, that's why that conversation was so fantastic. It's not just because it was a really powerful moment about the challenges that women still face in this world, even though there's been so many improvements, there's still so many challenges. It was that plus two in yourself and Lauren, very strategic players, thinking bonding, but also not just bonding and going, yeah, but that's the vote. No, it was bonding. And now how can we stick together? I want to play with you. I like the way you think. Let's think about a strategy. So it wasn't just the emotional moment and the really positive messaging. It was the strategy that followed and then the outcome, which was so exciting. That's what made it such a great combination of television.
Yeah. And I think a lot of the time, like in the past, a lot of the time, if there's two women like that, they just get pitted against each other. They see each other as competition or whatever. And I feel like now we've moved past that. And women can work together and be like there for each other. And I felt like that with Loz. I felt like she was really there for me. And in my mind, it was going to be like me and her, like for the rest of the game, basically. Like once I lock in and I'm riding with someone, I'm very, very loyal.
Yes.
So like, and at that point, like how I felt at that moment was that I would be happy to go to the end with Lauren and sit next to her and come second.
Yeah, because you would. Like Lauren's winning that game if she's at the end.
Yeah. And it's nice to have the thought that someone who plays a sort of strong, independent kind of villainous. I mean, she wasn't really a villain.
I don't think she's a villain.
No, but like that kind of game could be seen as villainous, where she's not afraid to say what she thinks. She's not afraid to be sort of cutting. But it is nice to think that we could have sat there and voted for her to win.
Instead, they got to vote for you to win. And the reason why I brought this up again is because you did mention a bit of this, the challenges of women in Survivor at your final tribal council. How satisfying was it then to win so strongly over two men?
Yeah, very satisfying. It was very satisfying to beat them. It was I felt like it was a little like I could see the votes that I had, and I figured that I was the only vote.
What did you think? I want to ask what you thought going in first. If that's where you're going, because I called, just watching in the real time. Yeah. I had you getting 4 votes before it started, and you got those 4 votes.
So I'll be interested to hear who you think the 4th one is, because when I went in, I figured I had Eden locked in, I had Loz locked in, because I was the only one who didn't vote her out.
Yep.
And I said that to those boys. You guys voted her as the person who was going to be the most bitter juror, and who's the one who didn't vote her out? So I figured I had Eden. I figured I had Loz, and I was pretty sure that I had Pauline. Like that 4th vote was the one that I couldn't count, and I never would have expected that it came from Aiden. And I feel like that.
Yeah, you're right. I was sort of thinking you might get Sab's vote.
Yeah, I thought I might get Seb. I actually thought I might get Andrew.
One of them,
Um,
yeah.
like I thought possibly I could pick up a vote from Andrew, possibly from Seb. I never would have guessed I would get a vote from Aiden. So I was really surprised. And actually his confessional where he said, like, I'm the only person that cast a vote for you in the game, like the only one. And so he felt like he was rectifying that. And I just thought that was so sweet. And it just shows how like evolved he is as a person. Like um the
I absolutely agree. I think, look, Aiden, we've talked to him on the program, and I think he's very much someone who respects good gameplay and strategy. And I think, you had that, and he wanted to vote for that. But I've also played orgs myself, and I've, voted for people at the end from the jury. And if you've got a little, like, cute little bit like that can sway you a lot. I'm not saying that's the
yeah,
reason he voted you, but it's like, hang on a minute, I'm the only person who voted for it, and here's the
yeah,
second vote. Like when
yeah,
you've got that
yeah.
little cute moment, you just love it because it's like that's great. That's great for
It's
like
great
my
TV.
moment. Yeah, it is. So I'm not saying that's why he voted for you, but I'm sure it was like,
No.
oh, but I could do this, and that's really good. Because I thought
Yeah.
I thought he might vote for Oscar just because of the relationship they had at the swap.
Yeah, so they did have a relationship at the swap, but that relationship didn't do Aiden any good in
It
the
really
end.
didn't know.
So,
Uh,
and okay, so you tell me where you think that fourth vote was coming from. Do you think it would have been from Sab?
Okay, so possibly Sab, but she did spend most of the game
With
with
Oscar.
Oscar. And when I played in my own season, it's quite amusing. I don't know if you've watched my season, and I cast my vote for Chloe, and whereas John was such a strategic powerhouse. And after the game, I became quite good friends with John, and I was sort of reflecting on it. I'm like, hang on, did you go to every single tribal council and vote the right way every time? And he's like, yeah, except one, which I didn't vote right one purpose. And I'm like, how did I not vote for you? Like, this is the sort of strategy that I adore. But he's like, it's not about that when you're on the jury. It's more about what makes your story relevant. And so the person you actually spent the time with the most is a huge factor on how
Mm.
you feel about people and your own adventure. And I think that's where someone like Andrew coming in, I thought he would respect your game, which I think had the best strategy. But at the end of the day, your game had nothing to do with his, and it's sort of
Yeah.
hard to make that connection for people on
Yeah.
the jury.
Yeah, that is true. I yeah, I guess like I when I counting up the votes, I knew that I wasn't going to get Todd, I wasn't going to get John. Like I knew that they were
Those they were locked
most
into
likely going to
Ed,
vote.
and those were the two votes that Ed was getting, and that was the
Yeah.
end of that.
Like they were locked in for Ed. I felt like that was like I was actually surprised that Oscar got the amount of votes that he did because I feel like I didn't spend a lot of time with Oscar on the day, so I didn't see really much of his game. And like it always seemed to be that the three of them, Pauline and Sab and Oscar, were working together, and I felt like that Oscar was not the one driving the strategy of that alliance, that it was more Pauline and Sab.
Yeah.
That was just how I perceived it. But then that's probably because I had more conversations with Pauline and Sab than I did with Oscar.
I think that's how the jury perceived it as well, and
Yeah.
I don't think he did an effective job of actually communicating the places where he was actually making big moves. Like he used two examples in the final Tribal Council of Aiden, which went nowhere, and his
Yeah.
plan to vote out Todd, which went nowhere.
Went nowhere. That's what I was thinking when he was making those conversations. I'm like, why are you saying this? Because these moves didn't work.
Mm.
Unless you've got like a really good reason why you're bringing it up.
And he didn't even mention how he sent Ed into the challenge with Pauline. That's one of the things he should have mentioned. That
Yeah,
was a
yeah,
move. That was a
yeah,
move to take Pauline out, who had become the sort of leading favorite after a big
yeah,
idol play.
yeah, yeah.
Do you think that
Um,
you would have beaten Pauline at the end? You tried to bring her with you.
oh, okay, so in that scenario, if Pauline's not on the jury and
So it's
and
you, Oscar, and Pauline,
yeah,
presumably in this example.
well, assuming, yeah, I mean, I would have assumed like if that was the case, then Ed would have won that final challenge, and we probably would have had to vote out Oscar.
No, no. What I'm saying is, at the final four, Oscar just comes along with the two of you and votes out Ed.
Right. Yeah. I think Oscar and Pauline split votes though if they're on the jury. So I still think I probably could end up with the win. I don't think Loz was ever going to vote for them. I don't think Eden probably would have.
And votes like Ed's vote, Todd's vote, John's vote become very, very interesting.
Yeah. So I felt like I had, leading up to me thinking that Ed was going to be sitting on the jury after I won the final immunity, I put in so much work with him to get him to be a vote for me. Like I was really honest with him about, hey, I'm going to vote for you. I'm sticking with Pauline. This is what I've said I'm going to do. Like I felt like I gave him lots of advice, especially in those late stages of the game, and I felt like he really appreciated it and took it on board. And so I knew he is someone that would value me just being straight up with him. So I kind of feel like I get Ed's vote, and I had spent quite a lot of like crucial votes with Ed from the swap onwards.
Yeah, I think so. I think you get that vote.
So I don't know where the fourth one comes from though.
I think maybe you get
Aiden again.
Who else is John going to vote for?
Well, not me.
Well, he might.
No, maybe.
John seems like the person. Look, he's always going to vote for Ed, but if Ed's not there, I think he's going to respect the better game. I don't think he takes it personally.
Yeah. I think probably he would have voted for Oscar though, because Oscar was the one kind of responsible for his demise in the end because of that that split.
It would have been very interesting, it would have been a very, very interesting outcome, but it worked out for you that I would have already talked about it on the show because I'm going to air this after our thing, but I felt that our challenge was incredibly weighted in favor of Ed, and I think it was poorly conceived. Well, because men, if you have a bigger arm, you get this ridge between your two muscles here, and Ed's would be bigger than mine, and you can really balance on that. Whereas if you have a smaller arm without big,
it's just a bone,
that's so much harder. Like it's way in favor of a man, particularly a man Ed's size.
And also like that was just over so quickly. Like really, we didn't even realize the challenge had started, and it was over. It was kind of like, what even was that?
Yeah. Well, it's to say because she would have a curved arm and he would have a ribbed flat arm. It's a completely male benefited challenge.
Yeah.
Anyway, that's just I will have already talked about that by the time I air this, but so now it just needs repeated. But I felt like it was a bit of an Ed advantage. I felt like just overall you played what is the perfect game of Survivor, probably modern Survivor these days. You were in a strong position at the beginning. You were in a core alliance of very, very good players. You got swapped into a advantage situation, but then were disadvantaged by a flip, but then managed to work it back. So you talked a lot about in your jury about pre-merge stuff, which is generally not that relevant, but that was the big part that you had to play because once you got to merge, you did something I think that's very important in the modern game, which was dial it back, go back a bit, blend in, and then came out firing again at the finale. But you still had great things to talk about because you'd been so active early. I think that's the model of the game you need to play to win these days. Was that your intent, or did this happen organically as you went?
A little bit of both. Like so, I feel like in the pre-merge we didn't have much of a choice. You have to sort of like the positions that we were in, we had to make decisions. Like we had to choose quickly who we were going to be working with, and it does go so fast on the day. And then after the swap again, like really sort of like we got locked in to this alliance. And then once merge hit, it was always going to be about like threat management for me.
Yeah.
Because I knew that if people were smart and they knew if they'd watched a lot of Survivor, they should have been seeing me as a threat. And I said in my like intro package that my plan is to not be threatening, to stay under the radar as much as I can until it's too late, basically.
Mm-hmm.
So until I'm so ingrained in people's plans and their alliances, it's too late to get me out because they need me for the numbers or whatever. So I think that that was all, like, threat management was always in the back of my mind. I never wanted to try too hard in the challenges or put myself in not that I think I could have beaten Loz and Ed in any of those individual immunity challenges after the match.
Yeah.
But like, I was always conscious of don't try too hard. Don't like look like you're trying too hard. Also I felt like I was very conscious of I didn't want to find any advantages in the game. Like, I didn't want the extra stress of that. I didn't want to be in a to draw too much attention. So, like, finding that idol at the start, like, it was great for me that Eden grabbed it. Like, I found that thing, but it was actually
you thought that you suggested to Eden that the circle might be. You didn't have the paperwork, but you suggested it might be an idol. Yeah.
No, as soon as I saw that thing dangling from the post, I'm like, that is something. I'm going to get it. I knocked the flag over when everyone was looking for the bucket or whatever the
water,
the water thing.
The sea,
I knocked it over and I tried really hard to get it undone, but people were kind of coming back to the area. And so I made sure that I stayed back and told Eden to make sure he was the one that holds the flag and just stay at the back of the pack so you can go and pull it off. Because like, I would rather just know where it is and know that it exists than have to worry about the pressure of playing it correctly. Like, if I had had that idol in my pocket, I would have just played it at first tribal. It would have been burning a hole.
Well, I'm glad that Eden had it, because he was one that was always playing his advantages in an interesting manner. Something that
that's also great for me. It's great for me that he's the one that's taking all the heat on being the one that's standing up at tribal and playing an advantage or playing an idol, and that makes him look like a threat, but it's also positively impacting my game.
Yeah.
So
I'll finish it here, but this has been a fantastic interview. I thank you so much for coming on. I know you're about to travel overseas. You are, of course, a woman of the world, and now you continue to be part of the world with your tribe. I don't know if you know this, but this is the 12th aired Australian LRG, and of those 11 beforehand, there were only 2 female winners. So you join a third female winner with Mar of Canberra season 2. And Sally of Backyard season 1 many years ago. But
I think that's such a testament as well to, like, the effort that Survivor Canberra puts in to casting women as well, and making sure that that is an important part of the casting process, and that it's balanced and fair and all that kind of stuff. So
look,
up to them for that.
Yes, Canberra this cast was fantastic. We've talked a lot about that on the show, and I've done casting myself for Melbourne 4, which is yet to air. I did that with John, and you do get a limited group of female applicants, which makes it very difficult to find ones that are excellent. Obviously, Dan has got something about him and his process, because all of the 8 women on this season were absolutely fantastic. But I think you're right there. I think it's about the quality of the candidates, because we've talked about this a lot. It can be very difficult for a stranger, particularly a woman, to say, you know what, I'm going to go out for 2 days with a bunch of random people I've never met or know anything about in some remote park, and there's
especially when it's going to be filmed and put online, and you're opening yourself up to tons of criticism. And whether that's like about how you play or how you look or if you're a bitch or any of this kind of stuff, so I feel like that is a big part of why women wouldn't put themselves out there to play. So, like, the more we can encourage, the better. So, and I know that the casting's still open for season 5. So if you're
I'm sure there's always spots for good women. I can tell you that there's always an influx of men. Men don't have any problems. Men are like, throw me in, let's go. Like,
it's the audacity.
No, but women, I don't know. So yes, if you don't know, you should do it. Bethany traveled all the way from New Zealand to be on this. Was a queen of the show and won as the 3rd female winner out of 12. So we moved up to 25%. So
that's excellent.
We're getting there. But thank you so much for coming on, and thank you for your amazing game. You're a pleasure to watch. We really enjoyed watching you. And as you said, do you want to give a shout out to Which one of Dani and Jules drafted you second? Do you recall?
I can't remember which one. I know it was Sab first, then me, and I was like, oh, they've got it so right. They were so right about the assessments that they did that it was going to be that like these were the key players. The picks were really good.
Yeah, well, yes, well, I did very poorly, so well done them.
Their picks were really good.
Yeah, their picks were really good, Dani and Jules's. So anyway, thank you, Bethany. Congratulations again. Love chatting with you.
Thank you.
Do you guys have anything that you want to call out from that?
No, I wish like we'd been able to interview her. I was just like, oh,
I love her.
She's amazing.
Yeah,
I fear I would have been putting on her accent after a while. Like I tend to do that with people from New Zealand.
The Aiden thing, it must have been part of my post-interview conversation. She basically said that she just talked to Aiden a lot about Aiden, and Aiden, her relationship with Aiden, the vote with Aiden, that first vote, that was what was really relevant for her and Aiden, and she just wanted to, give Aiden that agency and that relevance. And I think that's what a lot of, we talk about that stuff on RHOP and stuff a lot, that it's about telling jury stuff. Jury like to hear about themselves, and that's really what she had that was relevant for Aiden. So that's why she went back all the way to the first vote.
Yeah. No, I loved it. I loved hearing her insights. She's so switched on, so smart, so powerful. Loved everything about it. I'm just ashamed that she is such a woman of the world and couldn't be here with us.
And her hair looked amazing. She got it done just for the interview. She got it done because she was going overseas. But she thought it was fortuitous that she was going to come into the interview with her hair.
Yeah, with fresh hair. We love
it. The hair thing, when Sab and Loz came on here too, there was a lot of commentary about how good their hair looked as well.
Loving it. So
and obviously when I should be clear when I say that we had some problems casting some of the Melbourne 4 women. I, of course, am not talking about the two wonderful women sitting next to me.
I mean, I ghosted you for a while, if I remember correctly.
It was actually a lot of work to get you on the season, Jules. You were
to be fair, I played a trial game where I was the third boot. I was not wanting to come back and be a first boot. So,
Yeah, we had to push you very hard. It was a lot of effort. Okay. And there was someone else that I cast in that season that was also a lot of effort to get on the season. So not Dani, but someone else. So great characters, great players, but hard to get them to come on even when you know they're going to be amazing, let alone someone who's a bit unsure. Something that, again, and I think this really closes out this whole podcast conversation really well, that Bethany mentioned that wasn't on the interview there. Part of why she feels that maybe Canberra has such good women, and she does talk about, the appearance of yourself online and that being a concern for some people, that there's just a lot of trust and faith in Dan and what Dan will do for you in the storytelling edit. And that goes back to what we were saying before. And I think that might be a true fact. You can look at his product and see the way that he respects all players, but, respects women if they have a concern about the way they're going to be portrayed.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Dani's yawning, which means it's time to finish up. Now, here you know what's coming up on the ORCA pod. Monday night will be the tea party with the amazing Annabel and the people's champion, the man who's bringing you the free drinks at some time, possibly February, to be confirmed. Eden, he's excited.
I said this in the group chat. I was like, the way Eden is frothing at the idea of being with Annabel, I'm so excited for him.
Unfortunately, this was supposed to be a tea party with the rest of the final 4, but none of them are available. Pauline is a maybe, and the other 2 are not interested. But Eden, if it's Eden and Annabel for an hour, let's make this guy's dream come true. He made our dreams come true. He made everyone's dreams come true because they're getting free drinks. So, People's Champ on Monday. On Wednesday, we will be awarding the most important award in the history of the entirety of the world. The ORCA Award will be awarded, and for the first time, it will be voted on by us, as usual, plus Annabel, who've covered the season. But I have assembled the Congress of ORCAs. I have reached out to everyone that has been determined to be an ORCA of their season. And if they happen to have watched this season, which they may not have because, they weren't on it, other than Andrew, if they have watched it and they would like to give me votes, they can send them through. So it will be the Congress of ORCAs that have watched the season, plus us, that vote for this incredibly important award, the BROMILOW medal. I've actually put it in order. I have BROMILOW medals being shipped to me as I speak to be handed out in person whenever I do see these people. And I've obviously got ones to give back in retrospect if I see those people as well. So we will do that. And we'll have a chat with Dan and hopefully Liv about everything that went into this season. Then we will pause, we will stop, and we will start a new show where we jump into our coverage. We're never resting here at the ORCA Pod. Backyard 5 is on, and we will have a live draft next week. So double shows next week, ORCA Award, production catch-up, live draft.
So we're going to do another People's Champion? Where we're
a new People's Champion. There will be a new People's Champion. The Perth drinks will be on the line. Absolutely. We will have the same methodology of drafting as last point. Eden and the new People's Champion, whoever that will be, can celebrate together.
If I win that draft, will you fly me to Perth?
No, you fly yourself to Perth, Danny.
I'll fly you to Perth.
Actually, if I have to buy a degustation, that's going to cost me like $1,000. So I probably could fly you to Perth instead of the dinner.
Yeah, I'll take that. Let's wait till the next. We'll see what John we do.
It is your legacy, as is the wiki that Eden and his friend. I don't want to say the friend's name. I think he said Jaden. Jaden, is that right, Eden? Jaden have been putting together. I'll share a link in the ORCA Pod and get on there and start editing. It's incredible work. It's like the frame is all there to be filled out. Jaden Osborne. It's all there to be filled out with data, but it's already been worked up. And I've been talking about. I wish there was something like this that Eden had done for Canberra for all of the LRGs. Well, he and his friend Jaden have made it happen, and it's looking fantastic. So I'll post a link on our socials. If you don't follow our socials, what the hell are you doing? Go and like them. And then you'll be able to find this and get onto it. Until then, final comments on the season in a couple of words? No, it's hard.
Loved it.
If I'm adding it into the ORCA rank down of all the other seasons, I don't know where it would go, but it's up the top somewhere.
Definitive.
Do you want me to give it an actual no? It's probably like third or fourth.
Okay. I think you're right. It was excellent. And now, for the final time, well, not the final time, because we've got 2 more episodes, but now, as sadly, Bethany can't be here to be with us for the dance, but we will dance as always, and we will see you. Hang on, there's a comment. Check this one up. Something from Eden. Thanks, Eden. We love you too. Thanks for being here. Thanks for everyone who's watched live. We will be back Monday and then Wednesday and rolling on through the silly season. We're just going to be podcasting nonstop. So I look forward to that. I look forward to seeing you all
on like Boxing Day. Like we're literally going through Christmas. Like Boxing Day, we're going to be on air, right?
Yes.
Boxing Day, yeah.
And the 2nd of January.
Yeah.
All right. So it's just rolling on. But that's fine. We'll be there and we will see you then.